public meeting of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. I know William is joining us listening and by watching the teams. Okay. We do have 3 people that have signed up to speak tonight. So before you come, let me share some of the participation rules. Thank you for coming tonight to share your opinion. A few rules of order regarding the public comment portion of the meeting. According to board policy, each speaker has up to 3 minutes to speak. The speaker may also provide a written statement to the board to supplement his or her comments if desired. The board has at their place one such letter. We will have our board secretary keeping time tonight, and she will hold up time card showing you the time you have remaining. And that's Liz Lopez Hatley there. And I believe the time will also be on the screen above your head. The board may not ask or answer questions or make any comment regarding public comments not associated with posted agenda items. The board may respond with specific factual information, or existing policy may be furnished in response to inquiries on a posted agenda item. Please note that to comply with FERPA laws on student privacy, you may not mention a student by name. Additionally, according to board policy, you may not make derogatory comments about individual staff member, either by name or title. Should you need to file a complaint, you may do this through our normal formal grievance policy outlined in board policy. So having said that, we're going to welcome our first speaker. It's Gail Stevens. Gail, welcome.
Thank you. I'm here to wonder, I want to ask everybody, do you remember the first day that your child went to kindergarten? The first day when you took the picture and they're going to go to kindergarten and they're happy and they're excited. Now picture that and you're having to send them into a school that's got active shooters already in the school. Somebody in that school already has COVID and y'all are sending them in there every single day to an active shooter in the classroom. That's what it is. These people have COVID. They can kill you. You have active shooters in your room. The children go into a room, they lock the door, whatever they need to do that y'all have put in place for their safety during an active shooter situation. You won't even do that for the children with masks. They have nowhere to hide. They don't have a teacher to protect them. The principal can't protect them. The only people who can protect them are you people on the school board. Y'all are the only ones left for their defense. It's nothing to wear a mask. Which of you would look down at a child and say, I won't wear a mask for you. You're not important enough. I won't wear a mask for you. I don't care. Nobody has to get vaccinated yet, but I won't even wear a simple mask. Think about that. And these kids have to go to school every day and try to learn and try to wonder what's going on and who has COVID. The least you could do would be give them a mask to give them a little bit of safety and a little bit of peace of mind, not counting the parents. What do you think the parents are going through every day when they drop those kids off at school? Every single morning. Are they going to come up with COVID? As I drove here today and saw the kids walking home from school, I wondered which of them would be here in another 6 months or in a year. Which ones have had COVID? Which ones are going to be down with whatever situation, whatever circumstances they have from COVID? I don't really believe that there are people on this school board who would look down at a child and say, I won't do anything for you. You just go in and get your education. We don't care if you die or not. Just go in and get your education. Try to do that amidst all of the kids who are wearing a mask, they understand that something may be going on that they should be aware of. The other ones don't have a chance. Y'all have to go put masks on these children. It's just a mask. I mean, really, if there was a child anywhere on earth that I could help by putting on a mask, I would do it in a heartbeat without even a thought of anything else. I see ladies on this school board. I know that y'all remember when your kids went to school for the first time. It was hard. Now picture doing that with an active shooter in the room. Any of you. Just imagine that. Let's go a little bit farther down the road. Your child has COVID. What are they doing in the hospital? They're saying, where's mommy? Where's daddy? Where's mama? Where's papa? Where's Nana? Where's my brothers and sisters? Why is nobody here with me? Why? They can't come. You'll just have to bear this on your own because somebody didn't want to put on a mask. I can't imagine anything more selfish than to put a child in danger. Does this mean I have to quit speaking?
Yes.
Oh, I hope you all got my gist.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and speaking, Gail. Next speaker is Laurie Duke. Welcome, Laurie.
Hey, good evening. I'm gonna take my mask off so y'all can hear me loud and clear. All right. On 9/11, I was in a room teaching 24 babies in first grade when my vice principal walked in the room, handed me a note, and left. When I read about the Twin Towers being attacked, my legs went weak, and I remember holding on to my desk to hold me up. And then I remembered looking at the 24 students in front of me, those babies in those little bodies, and thinking to myself, no one will come in this room and hurt them, and it will be over my dead body if they try. Now, when I send my 2 kids to school at EMS ISD, I expect that mentality. They're my babies. 9/11 was an unknown threat out of nowhere. This threat that we are all facing now is not unknown. We know who it is. It's COVID-19. You are not my enemies. They are not my enemies, despite the lack of masks. COVID-19 is my enemy. And I'm going to be damned if my kids are going to get pushed out of a public education because of it. They have the right. It's a public education. You know, I know in-person learning is best. Well, you can't do that if the community on the outside does not step up and start covering and doing the mitigation strategies. Then I'm sorry, it falls on your shoulders. It's not right, but it does. And so to keep that least restrictive environment, we have to have universal masking. And if you look at the Texas code, Family Code, Subtitle E, Protection of the Child, General Provisions, person responsible for a child's care, custody, or welfare. Guess who's listed? School personnel. That's y'all, not just me, y'all. Neglect, placing a child in or failing to remove a child from a situation that a reasonable person would realize requires judgment or action beyond the child's level of maturity, physical condition, or mental abilities that results in bodily injury or substantial risk of immediate harm to the child. Now, when the Texas Department of State of Health Services posted on August 11th, risk of infection is very high. Unvaccinated people of all ages risk hospitalization and death. I'm sorry, as a parent, that's immediate harm to my kid and to everybody else's. The SCCA, I've sent y'all the temporary restraining order. It still stands by the SCCA. It's not been overturned. The Texas Supreme Court says it. You have the authority for 14 days after the day that it was filed on August 15th to make masking universal.
Thank you, Laurie.
You're welcome. I'm going to give y'all this, Dr. Chadwell. Can I hand you the
Of course, yes.
the letter I received from the
Or Megan will get it.
from Hank? Okay. The attorney for the SCCA. Thank you.
And we'll make copies.
I appreciate the
We'll
time.
make copies for everybody. Thank you.
Our third speaker is Daniel Bennett. Welcome, Daniel.
President Newcomb, Superintendent Chadwell, Daniel J. Bennett, 408 Pemberton. In January of 2020, TAD board member Richard Diott requested from TAD staff the number of protests heard by the ARB for the years of 2013 through 2019. He also gathered the same information from 4 other large appraisal districts. Mr. Diott then presented his comparison to the Senate Committee on Finance chaired by Senator Nelson on February 25th of 2020. This presentation, as an invited guest, prompted Senator Nelson to send a letter to the Board of Directors of Tarrant Appraisal District on the 30th of April 2020, which has been supplied to you. Thank you, Ms. Overman. The letter requests investigating the software used by the district if it is playing a role in the increased number of protests in relation to other major metropolitan counties. This letter was suppressed by the district by not distributing the letter to the existing board members. And the district received that letter on May 11th. But they did slide it into their agenda packet for the June 5th meeting, but not into the agenda packet for the public, which is online. During the June 5th meeting, the letter was not allowed to be discussed. On the agenda was an action item to move forward with audit services to investigate the software, which did pass 3-2. This is where the wheels came off. This is where the train wreck happened. Soon after this meeting, 2 members asked to be recalled. Each sent a letter to the respective voting block to be recalled. John Molyneux, the 3rd yes vote in that action item 3-2 for affirmation to go forward with an audit, and Michael Donald, the chair. I sued the district, each board member, 8 taxing units for this misuse of the recall statute in the 96th District Court. This recall request was so the taxing entities could control the process. If each member had just resigned, then all nominations from each taxing unit would have been put forward to the existing board members for vetting and a choice. This vacuum in leadership was ignored by Mr. Law, the chief appraiser. Mr. Law ignored a request by 2 board members for an immediate meeting so a chair may be appointed. These 2 board members were Mr. Diot, Mr. Gary Lasada. The 2 were joined by a majority of taxing entities to no avail. That can be affirmed by Mayor Pat Jacob of Lakeside. Senator Nelson's letter needed addressed in a timely fashion by the board. To this day, Senator Nelson's letter has not been addressed by the Tarrant Appraised District Board of Directors. 16 months have passed. This, in my opinion, is by design and is the arrogance apportioned to Mr. Law and the current chairperson, Ms. Catherine Wildman. Now, I've got 16, I've still got a minute?
Sorry, his clock stopped for some reason, but.
Oh, okay, because I want to talk about House Bill 988, which empowers you. I could just have 30 seconds.
No, I think your time is expired. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
But
But
we
it does
appreciate you
empower the
coming.
smaller entities, and we got it passed. Another time, thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's the conclusion of our speakers. We move to operations reports, and the first one is the quarterly demographic and housing analysis for the second quarter of 21. Mr. Bob Templeton, welcome, Bob.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. And this is a summary version of the second quarter housing report. So we do have the details of the housing activity, but I will go over the second quarter report and just touch on the start of the school year's enrollment impact. Start by just touching on the economic impacts that we've seen across the DFW region. This is a chart that shows the unemployment rates. You'll notice the unemployment rates over the spring and the early part of the summer. They were bouncing in that 6 to 7% range. We do expect those unemployment rates to stay in that 6 to 7% range as the Delta variant on the COVID is causing some challenges with businesses. And so we do expect to see about a 6 to 7% rate staying throughout the remainder of the year. Overall, the DFW economy, though, is doing well. We do continue to see very positive job growth announcements. In fact, West Fort Worth is positioned they're the leading contender for a very large electric vehicle manufacturing plant that should be announced shortly. And so should that happen, it will further put strength to the Fort Worth side of the DFW economy. Of course, Alliance is continuing to do very well. So we do see North Fort Worth, West Fort Worth as being a real strong point for continued job growth. Now, the housing market continues to also be very unusual during the last year and a half. Overall, new home construction is at record-breaking pace. And about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I thought that about 30 to 35,000 was the maximum number for new homes in the DFW Metroplex. Well, we've gotten close to 50,000 new home starts across the DFW Metroplex. So new housing continues to be very strong. It's up about 30% from a year ago. Quarter starts are up about almost 40%. Overall, new home activity is very strong. The challenges for new homes is the price. So the cost to materials, the labor shortage, supply chain issues are continuing to lift the pricing. Also, there's a shortage of existing homes for sale. So the shortage of existing homes is then adding a little more fuel to the new home market. Eagle Mountain Saginaw is ranked 6th in the DFW region based on annual closings. You'll notice the closing number is at 2,136, and then the start number has slipped or dropped slightly. So the annual start number is down to 1,771, and that is related to vacant developed lots. So you'll notice the vacant developed lot column, which is the second column from the right, we were at 990 vacant developed lots. That's extremely low. So that is what's causing a slowdown in start activity is lot supply. Now I'm going to go into some details. There is a tremendous amount of development activity that's taking place. So it's just a timing issue of when those lots get delivered, if they get delivered fast enough to where we could see a little bit of a slowdown in relationship to enrollment because of the slowdown in lots. But we've got over 18,000 futures, so there's plenty of lots in the pipeline. It's just the timing of when they get delivered. Now, this is looking at the activity based on your current elementary attendance zones. You can see you've got 3 elementary zones that are building over 200 homes per year. The most active is the Elkins zone right now with 265 annual starts. Second most active is Comanche Springs, 254, Copper Creek, 226. But you've got several other elementaries that are building more than 100 homes per year. So the single family growth is spread throughout the district. Now here's a map of your elementary attendance zones. Those green shaded areas are the active subdivisions that are building homes. The yellow are the futures. Those are future developments. Where you see a red outline around either a green or a yellow shaded area is indicating that development activity is taking place there. Bulldozers, earth moving equipment. So the developers are working in those areas with red outlines to deliver future lots. There are 2,883 lots that are in development. So that's the number that could be delivered within the next 4 to 10 months. So it truly is just a matter of the timing of getting these lots delivered.
Is that number, Bob, in your future lots in that far?
Yes.
So that number would come out of that into the next?
That's correct. So yeah, that 2,800 would be removed from the 18,000 and go into the VDL. Now there's going to be new futures come online too. So we'll see the future number continue to stay upward close to 20,000. You've got plenty of vacant land, raw land, so that we're not getting close to build out. But the future number will likely go up as well down the next.
Just for clarification, does the zoning affect it going into the futures column? Is that what you're looking at? Because as you said, that futures is not a fixed number. You'll actually add futures when ranch land, et cetera. So what's your measure to move it into the futures column?
When the developers start the preliminary process with the cities. So, or sometimes it can be a concept plan. So when we get word of a developer that has a concept plan that he's about to take to the city, then we will then put that into the future category.
So this is pre-platting?
It's pre-platted, okay. Yes. Now, we have some very neat satellite imagery that I did want to use this time around. Our satellite imagery is tracking about 2 weeks old, and it gets updated every week. So we thought this would be a good opportunity to show you some of the activity from our satellite bird eye imagery. Now, this is kind of zoomed into the Waters Bend development, the Barcy Ranch, Copper Creek. We put a couple of text spots there to show you. There are over almost 900 lots that are in development just in that circle. You can see Waters Bend, 391 lots. The Barcy Ranch has 313 lots, and Copper Creek, 197 lots that are in that development stage that will hopefully get delivered within the next few months.
What happens when they get delivered? What category do they go to, Bob?
Well, then they go to VDL.
Okay.
So they'll turn into VDL, which stands for vacant developed lot. So that's that final stage that they go through. But we will track this development all the way through the process. So our satellite imagery will be picking up when the concrete gets poured and then when they start to get the last phase of that development. Next is the Todd tract, which is 300 lots. So they've got dirt work going there. You can see the street paths are starting to excavate and get the streets ready. But the Todd tract is in development, so hopefully it could get delivered and developed by this spring, this next spring.
Mr. Templeton?
Yes.
Where is that located?
That is west of that, west of the Waters Bend.
Okay.
So on the Waters Bend, you can see it is that spot just kind of on the edge of the circle here.
And all that future development would go into an elementary, the Cranch Farm, which we purchased that. So all this would, what we're tracking for. And with only 900 lots available, that's the first thing that jumped out at me on Bob's report is we need to go deeper into where we're with this new development so that when you look at capacity and how quickly we bring on maybe a future bond or schools, digging down like this, I thought was important to say we are still growing. And there's a lot of it.
Now we're moving just on the other side of the state highway there. North Point, 500 lots that are in development. Cibolo Hills, just a little bit north of North Point, has got 181 lots that are in development as well. Now Marine Creek Ranch, and it's been one of your most active for several years, but you can see we've got a spot there in the middle of that circle that represents about 600 lots that are in development in the Marine Creek Ranch development. Now on the multifamily side, we're tracking about 580 multifamily units that are in the planning stages. You'll notice it's in the section in the edge of the Willow Creek Elementary Attendance Zone. We've also got some multifamily in the planning stages down in the Remington Point Elementary Zone. But total, it represents just a little bit around 580 future units between those two developments. Now on the enrollment projections, now these are the enrollment projections from last year. So last year, because of the COVID pandemic, we did see a slowdown in the enrollment growth. We saw this with just about all of our clients. We did forecast in a COVID bump for this year. You'll notice that the forecasted enrollment is an October number that we are forecasting to. So we were anticipating the district would have about 22,281 students by the end of October. And I know right now you are down at about 21,531. So about 21,531 is the most recent number that I've seen, which is about 750 shy of this projection. Now, we normally will grow pretty strong all the way through about the middle of September. So typically that Labor Day weekend is for a lot of families is kind of the start of the school year. And normally we see a surge just past that. So I feel like we're probably going to get to within about 300 students of the forecast. Part of this that's happening, I believe, is a response from the COVID Delta variant concerns. So we are seeing from many of our clients some hesitancy in the return, and that is causing that more of a delay before we're going to see some of that COVID return. So we do think that with the slowdown in the lot supply, this Delta variant concerns could be tempering those numbers just a little bit to where we could come in a little bit short. Now we will do our geocode of the students the end of September, and we'll have those new projections ready early October. So early October, we'll have the next round of projections ready. That will allow us to be able to work with CLEAT and the administration team to do the next round of facility planning to look at, where those next elementary might need to be or any other decisions that might need to be made around the attendance zone planning. The middle school enrollment numbers are pretty close to what we had forecasted. Boswell High School is within about 30 kids of what we forecasted. So the middle school and high school numbers are coming in pretty close to what we forecasted. It is the elementaries that are a little bit shy of what we forecasted. That's consistent with what we saw last year around the COVID concerns. The most hesitancy tends to be at the younger grade levels. And so that's where we tend to see the numbers be a little bit under forecasted. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Again, in summary, the lot supply shortage is a little bit of a concern, but the development activity is strong. 2,800 lots are in the development pipeline. So I think it's just going to be a timing of when we can see those lots come on the line and then how quickly the builders keep that pace going. But we do think 2,000 homes a year is kind of the normal amount that we can anticipate for your school district.
I guess the next quarter would maybe show some of those moving across into
Yes.
the VDL supply.
Yes.
All right. Anybody have a question? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it, Bob. Thanks. Good to see you. Our next operations report is the summer maintenance update. Mr. Dwayne Jones, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Newcomb, board members, and Dr. Chadwell. I'm just going to take a few minutes just to update you on some of the several projects that were completed by the maintenance department over the summer. There's several pictures that should represent fairly well of the different things that were accomplished. All right. So this first one, this is at Boswell High School. So in addition to obviously all of the athletic improvements that are going on in the back, just some of the things that we wanted to look at as far as the louvers around the library and the roof with that white roof. Those were cleaned, pressure washed, and there was a chemical used on the roof to try and get it back to where it was a little brighter. So these pictures are actually after pictures, so it did well. It turned out well as far as the cleaning. Also at Boswell, all of the interior and exterior doors and door frames were painted. So the picture on the left is the before, and then the picture on the right is the after. So it kind of shows, it's indicative of the entire school. Also the exterior doors, this is a little bit more noticeable. Before on the left, after on the right. So they did all interior and exterior. So the school's really looking nice. Remington Point, this is in the back of the school by the awning and the bus loop. The picture on the left shows that we had some challenges there with some washout and dirt and mud that would wash down onto the sidewalk when the students were trying to stand and catch the bus. So a retaining wall was put in, a concrete wall, I should say, and then sod was put in there. We did. That's not a trick. That tree is actually gone in this picture. It's the same picture, but we did lose that tree during the freeze. But all the sod's coming in really nice, and it looks really updated in the back there. Hafley Development Center, again, there too, all the interior and exterior doors were painted, much like Boswell. We also did all of the traffic gates. So again, left is before and after. And so that's, as you're driving up, it definitely helps with the curb appeal and the drive-up appeal of the school. Saginaw Elementary, we had some things that were going on there in addition to, obviously, we had several things that we worked on and repaired after the freeze, but we also did quite a bit of painting, interior doors and door frames, and then also exterior doors were also touched up. Let's see, Saginaw High School, these are actually concrete covers that go around water valves. And over time, those will either crack or they'll start to, you can see the two before pictures, they'll start to look off, out of level just because of ground heaving and whatnot. So we had those broken out and then replaced. And so those are back to full and level again. Various campuses across the district were updated, or I say updated, they were restriped. These are a little bit harder to tell as far as, but it definitely makes the parking lot a little easier to navigate with clearer lines and brighter paint as you're trying to navigate through. So it helps both our staff and our parents as they come to the school. This is just another shot again of parking lot striping. We had various schools across the district where we did landscape upgrades. And this is not necessarily related to the freeze. This was just something that we already had on our docket, just to go around and either update or add some plants into different flower beds, and just, again, to improve the curb appeal and the drive-up appeal of all of our campuses. This was also the next few slides or whatever. This is actually the winter storm that we had, where we proposed a 5-year plan to y'all. We have completed year 1, so we're very pleased with that. These are just pictures that we've done already. I believe this is at Gilliland. I don't know if we got pictures of every school, but this is Gilliland. I believe this is Creekview. So all these plants, the first step is to get everything that had either died or was dying and we didn't think was going to come back. First step was to get all that out, get that off the property, and then they came back and put all new landscaping in. So this is actually Saginaw Elementary. This is that very front part as you drive up. So just with all the with the shade and the trees and whatnot, it doesn't we have a hard time with grass there. So this is all new sod. It looks really nice up there in the front. I think that's all that I have for pictures. So I can answer any questions you have, or
I enjoyed opening my board book up and seeing that it just has made a big difference, with the paint and the landscape. So, kudos to the gentlemen and on your team that are doing all this.
Thank you very much. I'll pass that along.
It's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next operations report is a construction update. Clete Welch. Welcome, Clete.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll start off with the new administration building, and we have our Mustang Rock sign up. So that's Mustang Rock Road for our new administration building. And so kind of takes a while to get those up, so we were kind of proud to do that, show that one. Down in the bottom, you can see there's a lot of construction going on as far as the CMU blocks, a lot of workers down there. You see the piers, the rebar still in place, and the exterior walls over in the board area on the bottom right hand, and also grade beams are in that area. So different phases and different things going on. So the one on the left, you'll see that is where the lower level, and they're building the walls to support the second level in the interior. Jumping to Boswell High School, a lot of things going on at Boswell. You have at the top, you have the coaches parking lot. It's been graded with the lone tree that's located there with the new press box, not new press box, the new concession and the new turf room. You have the grandstands on the left. Both sides are tracking to be completed by the end of the month. And then you have the interior of the turf room. I'm going to show you a picture a little later. You'll see something different, but notice it's kind of the rust color, and so it hadn't been painted yet. Left, it shows the tennis courts, just completed that project. You have the shade structure and the new fence. And on the right, in the far corner, you can see where there used to be that asphalt. Now that is concrete, that's where the ambulance typically would park. Next to the scoreboard, and gives you kind of a south view looking at Boswell. The gyms were resanded, repainted, and it makes a dramatic difference. I think they really came out well. So this is, I think we have one more sanding on at least the main Newcomb gym. So that's usually about a 50 to 60 year process, about every 15 to 18 years. So that floor's been down there a while. And then just the thing on the gymnastics, if you notice the glare of the light, it's not really glare, it's just the LED lighting. So it really brightens up the place, and the new painting in that whole area makes a big difference. Seeing the weight room, of course, that's kind of an awesome view looking over the press box in the main stadium. And then you have some, the conference room, it's on the second level. And just working over some punch items. Now there's some main punch items we'll wait till November or December to get in there. We'll let football season get over, then we'll come in there. They're a little more invasive, but we'll hold off on some of those. And Lake Country Elementary, second day of school, had a beautiful rainbow right above it, but we didn't make it on this picture, but they did take a picture of that. So some of y'all were able to see that. Elkins Gym, it's got the new roof ceiling in the Barbara Christensen Gym. So it's a work in progress. I do have some pictures here. Besides these, I'll show you here in a minute. You see the sidewalk that's been poured to connect to the bus drop off and the main part of the front of the school. And new seating and curtains at Eagle Mountain Elementary. And Creekview, of course, we built Creekview, what, almost 20 years ago. There was no sidewalks around there. So now we're connecting to the community of this little park. So instead of the kids jumping the fence, or, you know, now we have a way to get to there and they can cross. They have 2 ramps so they can go to the front of the school and access. I went the wrong way. No. There we go. And then Chisholm Trail, still working in Saginaw High School, working on softball, baseball fields. So all these were about 2 weeks old. So the one that I was, you know, it's really on the clock is Pioneer Stadium, trying to get that ready. So we went out today and just took some more pictures of kind of 2 weeks, 10 days ago, what did it look like? So this is the brand new entrance. When you come in, you see Pioneer Stadium. Obviously, it doesn't have the black in there yet, but it does have a defining marker when you drive up to the stadium. This is underneath the bleachers, the main grandstands. They still have to pour, use the rebar. That's the main area where the water will flow down to the drain. And the gentleman on the bottom left, he's putting in the lighting in there, working on some part of that. And the turf room, all the brick is on that one on the far left. You see it's as high as it goes, then it goes to metal. Then you can see the other crew is working. So hopefully by the end of the week, they'll have it all the way above the windows. And then I mentioned about the turf room getting painted. So you notice right away the white, how bright it just, you know, dresses it up. So they'll paint it, they'll put the net in it, and that's then when the turf company will come in. So once the turf company comes inside, we're looking at a month as far as turnover in that area. Just a lot of concrete being poured. This is, the top right is the concession stand on the south side of the homestand. So all that'll be poured concrete this week, and also the ramp next to it, next to the scoreboard. So this was poured Thursday, if you remember, it rained Wednesday, and then we poured this Friday morning, Thursday night, and so all that area in the back now has been concreted in, and they finished this morning. So I showed you a picture of the coaches loop. Now it's 3/4 of complete. The only reason they left out that one part is they still need to access the visitor bleachers, so they can continue that progress. They'll pour that this week also. So it's all kind of coming together in a hurry. We've got a lot of work to do, but we'll keep pushing and try to get that first home game in.
Do we have a plan B?
I believe athletics.
I mean, I'm optimistic. I'm just hearing you say it's going to be ready, but what is the plan B?
I believe they have a plan B, yes. And I'll tell you the biggest, when I went, the visitor bleachers, you know, they're so much taller, the view is better. It's better than that original home view from what we had, just the amount of the sight lines that we have in that. So it's made a dramatic difference. And I think everybody will get to experience that. Oh, and we went to Elkins today. So remember I showed the pictures of the gym. So it is progressing. So it's a hard metal ceiling in there, and hopefully they'll finish that up fairly quickly. And they have the new lighting. So again, dramatic difference there. So,
And just a note, it's not pink or red, it's white. It's just
white.
reflecting this on the floor there. It doesn't look like that when you're actually there.
Mr. Kidd showed me a picture today. My first question was, what color is the ceiling? So he said white. I was relieved there. But he's going to talk about some of these projects. I intermingled the pictures, and but he'll go over those here in a little bit. Any questions so far?
Thank you.
for all your hard work and your crew. I mean,
They're all,
please. let
we're
them know
running
we
project,
appreciate it.
project.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you, Clete. Next is the bond projects update. Mr. Billy Kidd, over Billy.
Good evening, President Newcomb, members of the board, Dr. Chadwell. Mr. Wells shared with you the latest progress and on the construction and some of the phase 2 work with his pictures. Tonight I will share the rest of the story regarding the 2021 next phase of our bond work. As you know, this year is challenging. Materials availability, equipment delivery, scheduling, and personnel in many companies has caused delays with many of our vendors, ultimately impacting our 2021 projects. But with all of these issues, I'm still confident that we're going to get completed before the 2021 school year. So let's begin with what hasn't happened. Construction projects, Eagle Mountain Elementary, replacing the doors in the 2nd grade hall. Those materials have been ordered. We expect them to be in by the 1st of September and those doors to be installed by the end of September. And that work will take place obviously after hours or on weekends, not to impact the campus. Gilliland Elementary, we have a dumpster screening that will be installed at our kitchen. We expect that to start the 1st of September, and again, that will be scheduled around school activities. Creekview Middle School, you saw the new sidewalk that went in. We will also be putting a column wrap of masonry around their marquee and also repainting their marquee, and we expect that work to begin the 1st of September and be completed by the end of September. Boswell High School, we still need to do some sidewalks that will connect the community to the campus on a walking path at the northwest and the northeast and even the southwest part of the campus. That design has been submitted, it has been approved, and now it's just a matter of scheduling that work. It won't be very impactful to the campus, but we expect that scheduling to take place around the middle of October. Playground upgrades for Chisholm Ridge, Eagle Mountain Elementary, Elkins, Greenfield, High Country, Lake Point, Northbrook, and Remington Point. Half of the equipment has been received and the other half is expected in the next 2 weeks. Work will begin as early as this Wednesday at Elkins and Northbrook once we can coordinate scheduling with the campus. And the work will continue with the other campuses until the work is completed. Expected completion is around mid-October. Our lighting upgrades, which this was for many of our gyms and some of the cafeterias, for Chisholm Ridge, for Comanche Springs, for Eagle Mountain, Gilliland, Greenfield, High Country, Lake Point, Northbrook, Parkview, Willow Creek, and Ed Wilkie and Prairie Vista. The lights were actually received today. So we're going to work with the installer to create a schedule this week and then start progressing through that work as early as next week. And that work again will be taking place after hours or on weekends. We have fence additions and replacements for Eagle Mountain, Elkins. Those are wells, that's around their wells and their water storage tanks. And we also have additional boundary fencing for Lake Point and for Willow Creek. The materials are being ordered. We expect delivery on those mid-September, and all that work to be completed somewhere between middle of November and end of December. We had some theater upgrades at Boswell High School. We had the orchestra pit that's been ordered since last May, and our vendor keeps pushing that back. So now we were supposed to get it to 1st of August. Now it looks like they're telling us mid-1st of October. So that's what hasn't happened. Now we're going to start with what's going on in progress. Elkins Elementary, as Mr. Welch shared, we've got the hard ceiling in the gym and upgrading of the lights. That's about 50% complete. We expect that to be complete by the end of this week. At Chisholm Trail Saginaw High Schools, obviously the installation of the turf at the baseball and the softball fields. Right now, those are lining up. We had a construction meeting this morning to be completed the 3rd or 4th week of September, both of those campuses. And finally, ending with the best part, what is completed? Elkins Elementary, we received the new stage curtains, we received new choir risers, and those have been installed. The gym, the walls, the acoustical spray was demoed and new painting had taken place. We also received and installed last week the new telescoping bleachers for that gym. And we also added an ADA ramp out of the kinder hall to access the playground. At Eagle Mountain Elementary, they received their new stage curtains and their new cafeteria tables. Creekview Middle School, they received their new sidewalk for the Parkview Hills neighbors to access that campus via walking. At Boswell High School, we replaced 600 auditorium seats to match the ones that were replaced several years ago. We also completed the refinishing of the West Gym and the Newcomb Gym, their floors with the new graphics at the Newcomb Gym. And the Saginaw High School, they received their light upgrades in their main corridor from the front entrance all the way back to the auditorium vestibule. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
So you've had a busy summer.
It's still going.
Yeah, the summer continues.
Yes, sir.
All right, we appreciate that update. Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Kidd. You know how we have about 2.5 hours report and 1 hour to do them in. We're going to go ahead and let our science teachers. You're really going to appreciate not having to come back until 8 or 9 o'clock. So we're going to move to education services report without any board objection. Hearing none. We're going to go to the science update, which is our science secondary curriculum coordinator, Ms. Parisi and Ms. Cook. Y'all are still welcome to come back at 7:38.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, President Newcomb and Dr. Chadwell and members of the board for this opportunity. We are really excited to tell you about all the science and STEM learning that's happening in our district. As you can see, that hands-on learning still continue to be a priority in our district. We are really proud that our students can continue to share equipment. We were able to pay a good amount of attention to our disinfecting and UV labs to make sure that all of our equipment could be shared by our students safely and in multiple environments. And not just the equipment, but our teachers as well. They were excellent at being creative in making sure that science learning was happening in multiple types of settings, as you can see, because I think only one of these pictures is actually in a science classroom, just to show that we are looking at different ways that science is happening all over our buildings.
We continued with STEM Showcase last year and look forward to STEM Showcase this year. Last year during STEM Showcase, we invited our students and teachers to submit videos showcasing student critical thinking and problem solving. We were excited to get over 40 videos submitted and representation from all levels of our campuses. And with STEM Showcase, the videos were compiled into a STEM Talk video that we shared on the district website. We also are very proud about our district representation in the Teach Revision process with TEA. We have both been very committed to staying abreast of changes and updates with TEA, and we're very proud that we've actually had district representation on the assessment work group with TEA in Austin. So we're very excited about moving forward with our revisions.
Tell us about what they're doing there. Go back and can you tell us what they're, especially the middle picture there, the little green.
Yes, the middle picture is, that's middle school, and they are working with CPO ramps, and the green thing you see there is what we call a car. It's and the students are trying to assess acceleration, the rate of acceleration with the car. So they'll move that ramp up and down and length, change the length, etc., to manipulate the equation.
And in the other two pictures, the one on the left is at Comanche Springs, and the students are out in the entryway, the foyer, and they have designed these little parachutes to protect their uncooked eggs. And they're dropping them from the second floor onto the floor below to see which of them survive. And so there's a group down below cheering as each student launches, and they're learning about, you know, the protections that's needed to make sure that their egg survives. And just velocity, there's a lot of stuff going on there, and it's pretty fun and exciting. And then the right picture, that's at Eagle Mountain Elementary, and that was like in, I think, November or December of last year. It was really cold, I remember, and they were looking at wind and looking at direction and wind speed, and you can kind of see them holding up their little wind vanes in that picture.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a sample slide of the increased success of our students, of our science students compared to state.
Okay, and so I do want to talk a little bit about literacy practices that are happening in science. We're very pleased with our early results, at least of how these lessons have been received by our teachers. This past year, we introduced this guide, Eureka, where students and teachers are learning about real scientists and inventors, connecting it to trade books, and then doing investigations to learn more about the science concepts that these scientists and inventors brought forward. You can see this is a sample of some of the trade books that go with Eureka. We also had a group of teachers in 4th and 5th grade piloting the Picture Perfect STEM lessons last year. This year, all of our kindergarten through 5th grade teachers received training already, and they will be using a lesson in each grade level where students get to explore design, they get to explore STEM learning through using trade books again, and those are just a couple of the samples of the kinds of books that they are using. And I just put this here a little bit more about this Picture Perfect STEM, just because our teachers were excited about this because of the level of engagement that they bring about. You know, students aren't necessarily really excited about their 4th grade science textbook, but they are really excited about some of these trade books that are coming. They're beautifully illustrated, award-winning textbooks. So now the kids have the hands-on piece, but we're giving them the literature and the content for them to find out more. And so that just naturally progresses out of that level of engagement. Go ahead. And these are just a few more examples of the type of hands-on learning that's happening across our district. You can see kids aren't just sitting there in front of a laptop. They are doing and learning and communicating and writing all about what they are learning in science and in STEM learning.
We continue to integrate literacy into our science curriculum at all levels, pre-K through 12. Argument-driven inquiry, or ADI, is an example of this at the secondary science level. And with ADI, we have it integrated into all courses, 6 through 12. It is an instructional framework that the teachers follow, they've been trained on. Students start with a phenomena to ground their learning. They then engage in relevant context and research to design their own investigations. They collaborate with their groups to design the investigation, and peer review is happening throughout the process. The final part of ADI is the students write a paper to share their learning, and those papers are double-blind peer reviewed, 6 through 12. So we're very excited with the progress in our student learning with ADI.
And then the predecessor of ADI is our CER, which is Claim, Evidence, and Reasoning, that we start in kindergarten. It continues all the way through 12th grade, but even with our little bitties, the students are learning about how to make a claim about a scientific phenomenon. That's through discussion, through questioning, and then to give a claim of what they think is happening. Teachers are trained to ask very specific questions so that they are not the ones just giving them the answer. They're helping the students to start thinking about, what do I think is happening? Why do I think that? And what evidence am I using to make that? So it's a great process that we start with just discussions and then move into writing about it as they become more mature writers. So in our next steps for science, with the new TEKS revision, TEA has adjusted the Proclamation 2024. We will have our state adoption the fall of 2023, hoping to have materials, excellent science materials, new ones ordered by the spring of 2024, and then actually implement them in 24-25. So we're looking forward to that process, and Teresa and I are both active with that process and making sure that the new TEKS are developmentally appropriate for our students, but still keeping up with that high level of rigor. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Can I ask you a question? So is STEMs embedded in the textbook adoption, or is it something that we have to gather our other resources for?
Yes, the new TEKS will have science and engineering practices in the TEKS, and so if the new adoption materials are trying to be aligned with the TEKS, that the science and engineering practices will be embedded into the materials. Yeah, we kind of covered that stuff.
And we also would like to celebrate our middle school STEM camp this evening. We were able to serve 50 middle school students this summer. Our STEM camp, middle school STEM camp, is led by our middle school teachers. And this is the 4th year to offer the STEM camp. Each year, a different global challenge is posed to the students, so students can repeat the middle school STEM camp 3 years in a row and never be posed with the same situation, and that's by design. We are in a 3-year cycle with our camp challenges. Each day the students learn engineering processes and challenges toward a specific topic. This summer the middle school STEM camp topic was infrastructure, urban infrastructure, and they build a culminating project that they present to their families and to district leadership at the end of STEM camp. So they are now experts in urban infrastructure. They built their own ideal school building that should be able to withstand earthquakes, windstorms, tornadoes, a lot of different natural disasters with the engineering in mind. So we continue to build on our STEM camp and design and redesign to meet the needs of our students.
And Terry Lynn is going to talk to you in a minute about our elementary STEM camps, which is an exciting thing too, but I did want to make sure that you marked your calendars. March 3rd is going to be our annual STEM showcase where our students will be live. You can see examples of some of the learning that we talked about, so you won't just be looking at pictures. You'll get to see kids demonstrating and talking about what they're doing on March 3rd. So I hope we see you all there. Now we're going to give the floor to Terry Lynn, who's going to talk about our elementary STEM camp, which I had the good fortune to be able to be a part of this year, just a very little bit. So Terry Lynn.
Thank you.
Dr. Parker's going to present scores later, and I know our science scores are well above state as compared to some of our other scores. So we know y'all play a large part in that, and we appreciate the work you do and the interest and excitement you've got our kids showing in learning.
Very impressive.
Dr. Chadwell, President Newcomb, and board members, thank you so much for allowing me to share a huge passion project of mine, our district elementary summer STEM camp. Four years ago, as a 4th grade teacher at High Country Elementary, we organized this STEM camp to provide summer enrichment opportunities at no cost to our district families and for students to access and engage in STEM-related experiences. This idea was able to come to life through the support of Title I and most recently the EMS ISD Education Foundation. We have had a diverse group of educators. This is exciting for me. It includes secondary teachers volunteering, diagnosticians, PACE teachers, special education, and general education teachers, as well as our computer managers, all take the time during the summer to lead our students in classes. These educators have sought out STEM camp each summer because it either feeds or has fed their passion for teaching and for students. Many of these educators return every summer to work with students in a variety of platforms and to create lessons without the limitations of their roles during the school year. This year, we were honored to have motivated and engaged almost 820 students in the district. Many of these students have returned to attend camp all 4 years that it has been offered. The growth of STEM camp is exciting. Over the last 4 years, our STEM camp program has grown from serving approximately 200 students on one campus at High Country for 2 weeks to a program that now offers classes to 12 campuses from 3 of our district campuses for 3 weeks out of the summer, and we proudly engaged again almost 820 students this summer in grades K through 5. This year, we were also able to partner with Child Nutrition, and we served hot meals for both breakfast and lunch to every one of those students who attended our camps. These pictures are only a few examples of the many lessons that were offered to over 12 campuses of young scientists. Students use Dash robots to collaboratively plan, construct, and build an obstacle course, then code and drive through the courses. Students gained insight through problem solving into how electricity moves in a circuit, how a light switch at their house works, and how the amount of energy differs when more items use power from the battery power source. Reverse engineering. Students use tools to disassemble real-world products. Students gain the knowledge that engineers don't just fix things, instead they collaborate, disassemble, and use a variety of tools and resources to improve or make changes to create or improve a product. Experiments were constructed about how thunderstorms, rain clouds, tornadoes, thunder, and lightning form. Students were able to explore how forensic science is used in criminal investigations. These young scientists use the scientific process to solve a fictional crime. I lost my train of thought, sorry. While STEM camp is designed around student engagement, inquiry, and academic success, it's also important that we focus on the inspiration of our teachers as well. Our teachers provided feedback through a survey following STEM camp. One of the questions that I asked them was, how does STEM camp impact you or your teaching? Cynthia Newman from Prairie Vista had said, STEM camp recharges my batteries. The students are so excited and engaged, and it motivates me to find the ways to find that excitement in my lessons throughout the school year. Dan Schoenfeld, who's here this evening, 5th grade science, said, STEM camp helps reinforce the importance of designing quality lessons built around student engagement. The environment is well structured, educationally challenging, and fun. Cheyenne McMillan, a literacy interventionist who also taught at STEM camp, shared, STEM camp has really opened my eyes to the importance of connecting instruction to life beyond the classroom. STEM camp also showed me that students enjoy learning, working together, problem solving, and collaborating to reach a common goal. Kent Nevitt, a teacher at Willow Creek, shared, and this is the one that really kind of tugs at your heart, STEM camp is all the good parts of teaching. What are our next steps for STEM camp? We're looking at, we have 3 goals, and we're looking at through the continued support of the Education Foundation, we'll be able to expand the STEM camp resources to include a variety of robotics and coding opportunities. Our second goal moving forward is that instead of placing the students in the classes, we're going to offer student selected options for classes. We'd like to foster student passions by taking lesson proposals that are created by our staff for our students. This aligns directly to Aspire 2025, Goal 2, which focuses on student and teacher choice. We'd also like to increase accessibility by offering transportation for students to attend who would not otherwise be able to attend or participate. At this time, we have been doing camp at Greenfield, We added Bryson this year and at High Country. So we would like to be able to provide transportation to facilitate other students to be able to come. Before I go though, I would like to take a moment, and I'm very honored to have been asked to present about STEM Camp, but I'd like to take a moment and recognize an essential person in the coordination of STEM Camp from the very beginning, Michelle Graham, the librarian at Copper Creek. She has coordinated the supplies for all 4 summers, and if you've ever worked with Title I purchasing, it is a very difficult position to do. I could not have provided such a smooth program without her organization and dedication to the students of our district, so I wanted to take a moment and say thank you to her as well. Also, we do have some educators who have come and shared. These people have participated in STEM Camp each summer with me, and I want to take a moment and say thank you to them as well. They do get paid for coming to STEM Camp, but they volunteer their time every summer, and they sign up and they continue to come, and it's 3 weeks out of their summer. So I did want to say thank you to them as well. Thank you EMS ISD and the school board for the continued support of our elementary summer STEM camp. We are so very proud to represent EMS ISD. I would love to answer any questions.
Can you run your pictures back to your second slide? Because I think you have a little young man there that kind of captures the awe. Go back a little more.
Oh, I know.
I like that one too.
I know this one.
Right there.
That actually happens to be the son of the secretary at Greenfield, but I agree. Mr. Granger sure does. He's very happy. Yes.
Sorry, Liz.
Oh, I just wanted all of your, the teachers to stand that participated.
I would love that
as well. See them.
It has been fun to start this as a teacher and progress through the district. I am the assistant principal at the very new elementary school that you have, and it is my honor to work for you. Thank you very much.
It was a lot of fun just watching. I got to drop by High Country this summer and watch all the work that was being done. It was really exciting, and that picture really captures what a lot of kids were experiencing. You always have a good sign of a class when you walk in and they don't even know you're there, okay? And not only not know you're there, they probably weren't interested that I was there. They were more interested in what they were working on. So it was really good. And I just want to thank the teachers because obviously you have such a passion for what you're doing, and that shows to the kids. So thank you to each of you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, it is currently 6:05 p.m. on August 23rd, 2021. This board will now recess for dinner and then reconvene in a closed meeting pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. 551.071, consultation with board attorney. 551.072, consideration or purchasing of real property. 551.074, the purpose of deliberating the appointment, employment, or reassignment duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer, including discussing the superintendent goals. 551.075, purpose of deliberations regarding the deployment or specific occasions of implementation regarding security. 551.082, considering discipline of a public school child. And 551.0821, to discuss specific personal identifying information about a student. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School District. The board is reconvening the public meeting on August 23rd, 2021 at 7:10 p.m. and will now consider the subject set forth in the posted agenda. Welcome everybody to our August meeting, and to start our meeting out, we have Principal Dr. Winston McCowan and Chisholm Trail High School. Welcome.
Good evening. Again, I'm Dr. McCowan, and I'd like to thank you all for allowing us to conduct the opening ceremony tonight. And a special thanks to our Board of Trustees, our executive team for starting off the 21-22 school year on such a good note. To my left, I have some amazing Ranger leaders that I'm going to introduce. First, I have Jacob Hardy. Jacob is a 10th grade student at Chisholm Trail. His parents are Jared and Carla Hardy. Jacob is a part of the varsity choir and theater, along with a member of the Ranger vocal band. And Jacob is interested in music and plans to be a musician after high school. Next, I have Jeremiah Ledesma. Jeremy is a 12th grade student at Chisholm Trail High School. His parents are Manuel and Virginia Ledesma. Jeremy is a part of the varsity choir, theater. He's a member of the Ranger vocal band and is a Ranger ranch hand. Jeremiah plans to pursue a career in musical theater or forensics after high school. Next, I have Gabby Nunez. She's a 12th grade student at Chisholm Trail. Her parents are Roberto and Crystal Nunez. Gabby is a member of the varsity choir, is the president of the Chisholm Trail Chorale, and is an HCTC student. After high school, she plans to pursue a career in nursing in the NICU unit. And finally, I have Aaron Simmons. Aaron is a 10th grade student at Chisholm Trail High School. His mother is Trina Simmons. Aaron is a member of the Ranger Chorale and member of the Ranger vocal band. He's interested in music and wants to pursue a career in acting in Los Angeles after high school.
Please join us in saying pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now for the Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Please remain standing for a brief moment of silence.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're starting our public portion of the meeting off. We appreciate you so much. We do have some special recognitions tonight, so we're going to call out Megan Overman.
Thank you, President Newcomb and the board. For the record, I did try to get them to do a little dance or something on the way out, so there's no telling what's going to come from this group. I bet they could have. We shall see. If I could have Allie Surface join me up here. Allie is our Education Foundation Director and Community Partnerships, and she and I would like to recognize two leaders who are very familiar faces in our district through our work with our TASB Businesses Supporting Public Schools initiative.
Thanks, Megan. Cetera investors provide everyday families and individuals with financial solutions, guidance, and tools to meet their needs across all life stages. They collaborate with clients to create holistic strategies designed to save and invest for retirement and other life events, create retirement income strategies, protect the loved ones that they have, and a planned legacy. Clint and Ryan have been serving EMS staff and their families since 2007. Ryan has served on the Fort Worth Junior League, and Clint is the executive director for the Children's Charities of Fort Worth, organizing the Fort Worth Margarita Ball for the past 6 years. Over the course of the last 14 years, they have donated approximately $50,000 to various EMS campuses through classroom resources, after-school events, and scholarship events through the Ed Foundation, including supporting the annual district-wide Because We Care campaign. When I asked them why they chose to support educators and children, they told me studies have shown that emotional and physical health is tied to financial stress. They feel that by helping educators get get in a better financial state both now and in the future, they'll be able to focus their time and energy teaching and supporting the students in their classroom. Clinton Ryan, your commitment to serve is important to so many, and it's an honor to recognize the impact of your work through supporting public schools in a meaningful way. Megan will now officially announce your recognition.
All right, if you do the honors, Vanna. Excuse me. Here at EMS ISD, we know the value of the help that we have received from Cetera investors, and we're deeply appreciative of this partnership. The Texas Association of School Boards joins with us in honoring your valuable support for our schools. We'd like to present this recognition to you in grateful appreciation for all that you've done for this school district. We hope you continue your work to stand up for public schools, especially here in EMS ISD, and through this honor, you're able to encourage others to join with you in your support. Please accept this lovely lapel pin that you've been given and wear it proudly to announce your recognition of this prestigious award of your service to our kiddos. They also get recognition on the TASB business website. They get a special letter from the TASB president and all sorts of other jazzy things that get your name out there. So on behalf of our superintendent of schools and our trustees, we thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to introduce Clint's family because they came tonight also. This is his lovely wife, Tiffany, and their daughter, Madison.
All right.
Yes.
Next, we have some special introductions, and we were going to lead off with the communications department by introducing our new staff member. She had a family situation, was unable to join us, so we will catch her next time. So at this time, I'd like to bring up Dr. Parker for some ed services.
All right.
Good evening, board. It's exciting to continue our work to support our strategic plan, Aspire 2025. Part of that work is the opportunity to affirm the first pillar of Aspire, excellence in academics, both strategy 1 and 2, creating a culture of personalized opportunities and excellence in employee recruitment, development, and support. With these strategies in mind, we're pleased to announce the new leader, Mr. Zach Reeder. Step forward. He is our new assistant principal. We've brought him along. He was part of our TCU Fellows last year as an intern. He started in EMS ISD about 8 years ago, right? 3 years ago. He's 8 years teaching experience, but he was part of our career and technology program, and then he jumped into the TCU Fellows, has done an incredible job for us. I love what he said. He's a proud father of a Dozier duck and a Creekview colt, and a Boswell Pioneer teacher. So his roots run deep. He's working at Northbrook Elementary, and he's taken a lead on our accelerated instruction plan, creating the student tracking document or program with our technology team. So he's already stepping in the first few weeks and doing a great job. We're proud to have you here. Thank you.
I believe we have another special recognition. I'll call on our director of, from the Student Services Department, our Director of Student Service, Chandra Turrentine.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you? President Newcomb, to the distinguished members of the board, to Dr. Chadwell. Dr. Dawkins and I are so excited, and we would like to stand here and welcome Mr. Thomas Hare to our Human Resources and our Student Services team. He will be serving in the position of our Student Support Coordinator. So You can't tell by looking at him, but this is his 20th year in education. He is an undergraduate of Midwestern State and a graduate of Lamar University. He served as an assistant principal at Fraser Elementary for the past 3 years, and prior to that, being at Fraser, he also served as an assistant principal at Crossroads High School and also at Right Turns Disciplinary Center. Thomas Hare began his career in 2002 as a middle school teacher and coach. Was it football?
It was everything.
Everything. And he's also served in other various positions such as strength and conditioning and also in Lake Dallas, and also as a athletic coordinator also too at a middle school in Burleson ISD. Great. So one of the things I would like to say is Thomas and his lovely wife, Mary Lou, they reside in Fort Worth with their 2 rescue dogs, which are Lola and Rocky. Rocco. And here's the wonderful thing that I did learn about him. He is an avid outdoorsman, and his philanthropic contributions relate to the Teddy Roosevelt Conservation Project, Ducks Unlimited, Pheasants Forever, and the National Park Foundation. So again, we'd like to thank you for and welcome you to our team.
Yes, very excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Thomas, you're kind of blocking Mary Lou when you said we could have your rescue dog, so I didn't.
You can come play with us anytime.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our special introductions for tonight. We are back to our reports. The audience will be thrilled to know we're back to report C, finance report. Mr. Rob Welch. We're going to start us off with a budget update. And that is on page 52 if you're looking accordingly.
All right, well, good evening, trustees. We have a quick update for you tonight regarding the 2021-2022 budget process. Since our meeting in July, we've prepared and published the meeting notices regarding the budget and tax rate, and we received TEA approval to proceed with setting a tax rate based on our certified values, as you can see on this timeline. Tonight, August 23rd, we are conducting the public meeting considering the approval of the budget and tax rate. I will save some details for the public meeting presentation, but no changes in the key assumptions since our July presentation. And at this time, we remain in a balanced budget scenario with all 3 budgets. And again, utilizing the current assumptions and the strategic use of our ESSER funds. So in the debt service world, I am excited to recap the results of the recent issuance of the Series 2021 school building bonds. The parameters order allowed us to issue principal up to $225 million. And we received orders of $807 million on that $225 million request. There's a lot of participation and a great competition that day. And so a lot of great work on behalf of by our underwriting team and the syndicate, as well as our financial advisor and all the pre-marketing and everything to bring to a great result on our issuance. So that participation provided premiums in the issuance to affect $248 million in proceeds at a total all-in interest cost of 2.182%. One of the goals we had with the issuance was to capture as much of our remaining authorization at these near historic low rates, and we definitely were able to do that with these premium purchases. So that additional amount between the 225 and the 248, while it may not translate to additional construction dollars for our construction budget, it definitely allowed us to utilize as much of our authorization, lock in those low rates on the remaining amount of our authorization. And so now we're down to about 199 million in remaining authorization. And we'll come back next year about same time, look again to see where we are in the market and our needs. But this is a great issuance and a great savings to taxpayers going forward at these low rates to continue the projects that we have in the bond program. So anyways, with that, unless there's any other questions, I'll move us to, or we can move to the next item.
No, please go to the budget amendment.
Sure thing. So I will just speak, let me just speak to that budget amendment. And so as we wrap up the 2021 or 2020-2021 fiscal year, we have provided the final budget amendment for consideration and an action item later on this agenda. When we began the year, we anticipated that the budget would need a lot of flexibility to maneuver a year expected to be like no other, and that did play out on a number of levels. Both revenues and expenditures have seen adjustments due to operating in the COVID-19 pandemic. The application of ESSER funding creates different impacts on both revenues and expenditures depending on when an eligible expenditure occurred or is expected to occur. So we've had to be very flexible in how we've approached the budget and making adjustments, and this amendment does that. So beginning on page 60 and rolling into page 61, you can see our current amendments to the general fund, netting $4.9 million. If you apply those amendments to the proposed amended budget, I'll direct your eyes to the middle of page 63, and in the last column, you'll see a amount of $3,004,160. That's a net increase to fund balance for the year. There are still some unknowns that may impact the final results, including the final amount of ESSER 2 funding that will supplant our state foundation formula revenue for the year. But we should end the year with a net increase to fund balance when it's all said and done, regardless of how those remaining events play out between now and 8/31 or thereafter. So we should still end up in the black.
Two questions on that, Rob.
You bet.
On page 62 at the top, the taxes for the current year that we're amending $2 million, collections look similar, and I did notice that foundation entitlements picked up by $3 million. Was that just a swapping of where the money came from, the state or taxpayers, or?
Yes, that's an estimated swapping of, along with in the overall revenue formula, we'll also see an increase for some hold harmless ADA. And so, but between the two of those obviously, like you mentioned, there is a swap whenever property values or whenever collections go up, we'll see an adjustment too.
And then in the investment earnings, 5742, and we've got a lengthy report from PFM Asset Management LLC with all kind of investment recaps and graphs and bars, but this budget adjusts the earnings of 430,000. So what was the deal there?
That is throughout the year we saw we just didn't see much in the way of interest rates. You know, interest rates dropped. We've tried to make where we can along the way utilizing PFM. But the reality is, as we all have seen with our other, all of our investments from a standpoint of, the very safe investments of savings accounts and other interest rates, those are very minimal right now. And so
it seemed like a lot to miss it by. Did that have any valuation, like present value of any bonds that we held, or is that strictly just interest and or dividends earned from our investments in that 5742?
That 5742 is just going to represent the interest. Okay. So the other piece will show up on the balance sheet.
I didn't cross-reference that to this year's budget, but is it was it adjusted similarly? Do you recall?
I would have to go and pull back and look.
I don't know if I have that specific detail.
Well, it left it at 500, so we anticipate it's going to rebound up to 500,000 from 70,000.
We are watching that. I don't anticipate that we will hit that mark, but we will continue to look at that.
So I was trying to read the report that she gave us, or whoever gave it to us, on the quarterly summary, trying to pick up the rates they had. So would we be able to track it from these quarterly reports from PFM?
Yes, PFM, the quarterly reports do take into account all of our invested.
All the earnings?
All the earnings from our.
And the earnings all get reported there, or do they go, is there any other place that, in the bond fund or anywhere else that it's netted with? Or is that all the earnings will be reported in the 5742?
All the material amounts will be in the Fund 199 General Fund 5742.
Okay.
There are in the quarterly report that does include all funds. So like our capital projects fund, any excess or any current unexpended funds until we expend those funds are invested. Typically in pools or very liquid, text pool and others that are very liquid from that standpoint, because we typically don't hold those more than a year. So they'll be in pools, but the interest on the capital projects funds, the construction fund, those are going to be included in that report as well, including the debt service fund. All of our funds are reflected in that in the quarterly investment, but the material amount of that, most of that, is going to, in the way of interest savings or interest earnings, are going to show up in the general fund. So, but that is an area that we have to continue to monitor and reproject along the way, and we do have some historical budgeting in a couple of places that we will have to continue to look at.
What else about the budget amendment? Did anybody have a question on? I see that the debt service fund also had, but it was a small,
it's
not, or actually child nutrition, I guess, is the only one.
Yes, it's not as material in those accounts because the balances are not as much. But I will make note, if you would like to make note of, if you look over at the amended budget on page 65 for the child nutrition, we are showing in this amendment, we are showing a $335,565 net use of fund balance, but in reality, that is from an estimate. Those are conservative estimates, both on the revenue and on the expenditure side. They culminate to that net use of fund balance, but we do not expect to be, when it's all said and done, we do not expect to be utilizing fund balance. We do intend to put money into fund balance at the end, but to make sure we are in compliance with all of our functional spending levels, as well as on the revenue side, that's conservative on both, and so it ends up looking from a budget amendment standpoint, it does look like we are utilizing fund balance, but we don't plan to. Our projections should land us when it's all said and done. That bottom line we should be putting a little money back into fund balance. We should end the year where we need to. We actually started off the year very strong as well with meal participation here in August that will factor into these numbers as well.
The child nutrition, what did they're allowed to give them, or we're providing breakfast and lunch, and is that somehow into the new budget for child nutrition?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes,
Is it paid for through a federal program?
it is. It's an extension of the
Like the
summer
STEM,
feeding.
like the STEM program that mentioned earlier, that was all reimbursable. A lot of the issues from last year just strictly has to do with the expense of providing child nutrition. We were upside down in a lot of those areas. A lot of it's reimbursable from the feds, but we also had it had to do with under usage of during the school year. So just fewer kids ate. And so you staff for X, you have a lower number than expected that are eating. Our bistro numbers were down, all our a la carte numbers were down. And so our reimbursable meals, this is the other offset to it as well, which is kind of a mixed blessing, is that the feds last year provided free, the reimbursable meal was free to all students regardless of qualification. And so that would affect your a la carte sales and your bistro sales. Of course, we took advantage of that. We're not going to block that because they're not going to buy food at a cost, but it did affect our revenues. We don't expect that to continue this year, and he has a budget in line. It kind of worked at the most opportune time, because y'all remember we ran with a surplus in that area and worked on child nutrition projects, all of our capital improvement projects. We've completed the vast majority of those. Basically now it's just mostly equipment upgrades. We don't have any major physical renovations, unless Cleveland to correct me. I can't think of any major physical kitchen renovations or serving renovations, which is where we'd spend our money. So if it was going to happen, it happened at the right year, and then we'll make up for it this year.
And then if you'll notice on the bottom of page 65, we also have a net increase to our debt service fund balance, estimating that at a little over 3.2 million.
Any questions on the budget amendment? All right, Rob, next you've got the renewal of the lease agreement with the Tarrant Water District.
All right. It's been a while since we've seen the lease agreement come through from Tarrant Regional Water District. This is for the agricultural property, our facility where it's located there within the Windy Rhine complex. This renewal does have a few adjustments to it from where we have what it has involved in the past. The original agreement goes back about 20 years, and I'm going to scroll down to just the exhibit here, so you can see the area here we have in red. This full area here is what the current lease, expiring lease, included. We have over the years had in effect a sublease to the Tarrant County Sheriff's Livestock Estray facility. That lease with Tarrant County has again been in place. Tarrant Regional Water District contacted us earlier this year as this was coming up for renewal, and asked if they could make an adjustment. And part of that is for liability purposes, so that they want to lease directly with the Tarrant County Sheriff's Livestock program, and we believe that does make sense from a liability standpoint. Our actual use is this area here, which is approximately 5.8 acres. And then and our lease would scale back to just this area for now. There's a creek that runs through and bisects this property. We have not utilized, nobody has utilized this area here where there's a well site. We do know that Tarrant County Precinct 4, their maintenance facility utilizes this driveway out of the back of their property, and cutting through and bisecting. And so for a number of reasons, it does make sense for us to adjust this lease for now. Tarrant Regional Water District did indicate that should we have a need in the future, there are no plans for this site right now. And at some point, if we needed to look at that, that does remain an option for us if we do need to expand. In the
No
meantime,
one's going to lease that between the two yellow, between us and the sheriff?
That is, according to Tarrant Regional Water District, they're saying there's no interest in doing anything with that at this point.
Who's going to maintain it? And did we have to do any maintaining of it?
No, we do not. Tarrant County has
protected us, I guess.
Yes, and the sheriff's department, didn't they maintain it? Or was it Tarrant County?
Yes, through Tarrant County.
Through Tarrant County.
They've maintained all of this.
Yeah.
So
we won't see any difference in terms of usage, but.
And so with that, they did they upped the cost to $500 a year. I think we can handle that. And it's a 3-year term. And so with those changes, we wanted to bring that information to the board. And,
is there any way to get them, do we want a longer term there? We have a lot invested there. Is 3 years all they'll go?
I mean, that's been the traditional, is what they've done. I mean, we can certainly go back to them and try to extend that, but in the years that I've been here, they've gone to the 3-year.
Never been a problem.
No. We obviously have a capital investment there that's significant. And we're about to put more money into it in the renovation of the ag barn.
That's what I was thinking.
And expand because of the new high school.
Yes.
so,
It's quite a lease for $500.
so
No, I don't think there's not a renewal option that I saw. So they've always renewed it. Don't anticipate any problem. It's always been 3 years.
We can pursue it. I mean, if the board would consider approving it tonight, we could always go back and ask for a longer lease to extend,
maybe
to
option.
piggyback on that, to ask if they would consider that.
maybe we can approve an appendix to the lease.
I don't remember, PYBSA has a lease with them too, and so does SY. I thought it was a 99-year lease, but I could be wrong about that.
We can ask. Yeah.
We're gonna have a lot of money invested there for them to all of a sudden decide they need that for something.
Right.
And what it'd be. Oliver's no longer there, so he was the one that I knew that had some faith in down there.
Now, we definitely can go back to them.
I don't think we should not approve it. I mean, I think we should go ahead and get it.
Now, we can always ask for 3 years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll do that.
Okay. And then there are no additional questions on that. I'll move to our
Property and casualty insurance
property
policy.
casualty. Yes, sir. So, and being the final report tonight, we are providing the property and casualty insurance policy proposal on a later agenda item. With no surprise, based on the early predictions and then a statewide freeze event, we are seeing another significant increase in premiums. The wind and hail losses for carriers in the North Texas area are driving the market higher as carriers limit the policies they are writing in the area in an effort to reduce their overall exposure. So the proposed complete property and casualty package has a total cost of $2,226,441.57. This is an increase over the prior year package cost of $1,800,000 million. The recommendation includes maintaining the property policy with a 2% wind and hail deductible as the best value for the district. We had forecasted a premium increase in the early development of next year's budget and have accommodated the cost of this proposal in the final 2021-2022 budget recommendation being presented for adoption. So with the current policies expiring August 31st, or at the end of this month, we will be asking for action tonight. Because the underwriters are not keeping the proposals out there for longer than 30 days, we are having to look rather quick on these proposals. So, with that, those are any questions?
Any questions on that? Thank you, Mr. Welch. We move to our report section D, which is the education services report. And the first one is the 2020-2021 State of Texas Assessment of Academic Readiness and EOC exam data. Dr. Parker,
Yes,
you have a
we
long
are.
title there for your report.
It is long, and we are excited about that. I am starting on page 94 in your board book.
All right.
If you want to go there. The 2021 results of the state accountability test will be summarized in this report. This is our first report since 2019, as students did not take the state accountability test last year due to the COVID pandemic and school building shutdowns. We were required to have students test this past spring, 2021, and to use the results as indicators of areas to target for improvement, but not for accountability or state ranking. That's interesting because I'll get to that accountability piece in a moment. The STAR and EOC results show the impact of the pandemic and remote learning on student achievement. EMS-ISD leaders are using the data to target required areas for improvement and individual accelerated learning needs. I want you to know our administrators, our teachers, our coordinators, curriculum have always used the STAR and EOC data to target learning and improvement for our students. So not just because the state says we do, they're just more targeted at that piece with their requirements. So while I'm not excited to present the scores. I believe that my excitement comes from the anticipation of great growth that we'll see now that we're back in school. So let's get started. Our foundation of our work lies in our mission and our belief statements. I would be short, I think, if I left out that we continually seek our mission of instilling, fostering a culture of excellence and instilling a passion for a lifetime of continuous achievement for every student, built upon our 9 core belief statements. It's exciting to connect this to Aspire 2025, our strategic plan. It falls under Objective 1 and Strategy 1.1, and it's all about maximizing student potential and developing a system to foster an environment of engaging and challenging learning while maintaining high expectations and accountability. It's nice to be back what I feel like is to that core work. When we look at the grade level data, what I will show you is we expected a dip in scores, and we saw that almost across the board. We did have some excitement on some campuses that did show growth in the middle of the pandemic. In the dip in scores, I anticipated, you know, as we're going through, maybe 10 to 15%, and we really fell in that area on most things, and then some not so bad. So let's jump in here. What you're going to see on each slide are you'll be given data from 2018, 2019, and 2021. On each of the graphs, the blue indicates our district, EMS-ISD. The golden is the region, 11, and then the state. What you see in 3rd grade reading is you'll notice that 2018 was our highest level, but in 2019, in 3rd grade reading, we fell 9 points. Our region and state fell both 7 and 8 percentage points. What we found in this, accelerated instruction needs deemed by House Bill 4545, our 3rd grade reading, we have 540 students who did not meet the approaches or higher, which will require 16,260 hours total. Take that, multiply that, the number of 542 by 30. Keep in mind that according to the state, we are required to offer 30 hours per subject failed with a limit of a 1-to-3 ratio, unless we are expecting unless we get a waiver from a parent. So we have had some of those waivers where we would just do small group instruction.
So just so you can just explain it to us once, because I know that is a recurring theme about calculating the number of students that are required.
Right.
Required, because you mentioned that at the very first of the presentation, that the state has some requirements. So if the student fell below what score were they required to get this?
Approaches. So you have approaches, meets, and masters. Our goal is to be at meets, but approaches is considered passing. You would have to be at the approaches level or above to be considered passing.
Okay.
So if you were
is
below
that a number,
approaches.
or is that approaches, is that a number that we can relate to, or is it a Percentage of
It's
questions, right?
It's a percentage and it changes every year. The scale score, they recalculate every year. So I can't say it's 70% of the test. It's usually what, 55% and 65%, but I'm telling you, it changes every year.
Is each subject different or is it the same
Yes,
for reading
each subject
science?
is different
Each
as well.
subject approaches score,
Yes.
each grade level approaches scores different.
Each score you see here will have its own score, and it changes. It changes. So one year it'll be this, the next year it'll graduate up.
Yes.
And
And that's
then-
why we saw a difference in 2018 and 2019. We had some changes. Now keep in mind, we just took 2021, right? Next year, we're taking reading and writing and we're combining. So this year you see 2 tests, scores, reading and writing, but next year they'll go together. So this 2021 really can't serve as baseline data either.
So what was the approaches score as compared to 19 then?
As to
did they keep rising the score, the goalposts kept moving? Even during this time, did they move it more from 19? Because I know it moved from 18 to 19.
No, but it is a different test, so the questions are different at times.
They didn't require a higher.
No, they didn't. No, that's a good question, but no, they did not.
And on the remediation, that includes kids that didn't take the test, right?
Okay, yes, it includes children who didn't take the test. Now, if you were absent, you can take a practice released exam. We have those scheduled. And then if you meet approaches, you would not be required to do the 30 hours. But if you were present and you just didn't take your exam, then that's still considered not meeting approaches and you are required.
And the 30 hours is a pull-out or an extra 30 hours?
The 30 hours are a required, yes. Yes, but here's the catch. You cannot take from core content direct teaching. You cannot take from an extracurricular. You cannot take from recess or athletics. So what our campuses have been deemed with, okay, you're going to have these hours. I've got some totals at the end that I'll show you. We have to support them. We have to make good faith effort. You're going to hear me say that, good faith effort to meet those. How do you want to meet them? So they have worked with their staff and that we have some what we call win time, what I need time. We'll be doing some in that. We will be pulling after a direct teach with some tutors. Some of our campuses have tutors all along. So they're rehiring them to come in and work, or they may be getting additional tutors. And then after school, we'll be offering some opportunities. I know one of our, Chisholm Trail High School is offering a home Friday games, a ticket to the game if you come to tutoring for 2 to 3 hours after school. So we've got a variety. We've got Saturday mornings planned as well.
It's 30 hours by when? By the end of the school year?
By the end of the school year.
Okay.
Okay, but once you take the test and pass it, you're good. But it's the state test at that point. Okay?
So Dr. Parker, we're basing this only on the STAR test?
It's only on the STAR and EOC.
So if you have a 99 in math, for example, or reading, but you have test anxiety because you have a learning disability, and you have test anxiety because you don't have learning disability, you just have test anxiety and you don't do well in the STAR, then you are still going to be required to do this.
According to the state. Now, there is no opt-out. However, this House Bill 45 required a grievance process. We have a grievance process, so we would have an opportunity for a parent to file that, then meet with that principal and make a decision on next steps. Okay, thank you. Good questions. So we get to 3rd grade math. This is an area where we saw a greater dip than 18%. We went down 18%, the region 14 and the state 17%. Most of these you're going to see us trending either right in the middle of everything. And these are our accelerated instructional needs. We go to 4th grade reading. Again, you'll see that 2018 was a more successful year for STAR, but we did, but not as much as the state and region. Here we did 9 percentage points while the state and region went down 10 and 11. 10% at the region and 11 at the state. 4th grade writing, We've worked very hard and with lots of intentional focus in writing. I know this 47% looks atrocious, but I will tell you, we've worked really hard. You saw that evidenced in our STEM presentation earlier. In this one, while we fell 13%, I want you to look at the region fell 36% and the state fell 30%. So to me, that's a major win. 752 students, 22,560 hours. When we get to accumulation, you'll see where I took the larger number of either reading or math and combined it. I didn't add them both twice because typically it's the same. Fourth grade math, same pattern here with the earlier with EMS above the state and region in the drop. We were only at 9%. This region was at 14 and the state was at 16. We were above the state in that area. Again, amount of accelerated instruction needs. Then we move into fifth grade. In fifth grade, we stayed above the 70% mark, but we did drop 9 percentage points with the region dropping 6 and the state dropping 5. When we go into fifth grade math, we are right even. Everyone dropped 14 percentage points. I think that's the only one that did that particular one with 13,620 hours needed. Fifth grade science. This is a bit above. We are above the state and the region in this. We had a 9% drop and we had at the region a 12% and 13% at the state. I think our STEM work's paying off. 477 students with a total hours 14,310. When we look at sixth grade, this is where we start seeing a little bit of improvement. In the next slide, I believe. We continue to dig into the data to find out the why of our drop. And when we look at this, we see a negative 14% drop, but the state and the region only went down 5%. I can tell you it was, you can tell COVID had an impact. Our middle schools, you're going to notice those hours start to really come up. Our middle schools have the greatest number of accelerated instruction to provide. Sixth grade math, again, 15% drop, 12% drop at the region, and 13% at the state. We're sitting there at 66%. When we get into seventh grade, reading, we have a 13% drop and then a 5 and 6. This was a really major hit, and we had a campus that has taken a hard look at, they're usually very high and they drop quite a bit, and so they're looking at and implementing their strategic plan to get back where they need to be, and that's evidenced in these. Seventh grade writing, we were just 1 point above in dropping. We were right there with the region. We did drop 7%, they dropped 6%, but the state did drop 8%. Here's our accelerated reading and writing needs. Then we get into seventh grade math. In seventh grade math, it's interesting, and we typically show a little bit lower numbers because remember our accelerated mathematicians are testing in 8th grade math because they'd spend half a year in, they take half of the 7th grade curriculum and a full year of 8th grade curriculum. So we usually show lower numbers here due to our advanced students, and we had a 20% drop and then 17%, and the state dropped 19%. Ending us with 21,480 hours of intervention. Our 8th grade reading, this brings a better change. Here we have an 8% drop, and then we are still above the state and region who had 5% drops. And this is, I said that earlier in 6th grade, but it's in 8th grade in this year where we start seeing an increase. Our 8th grade math, we had, sadly, this is an area we had 23% drop, and the state had a 21% and the region had a 19%, but we're still staying above the state and region in that area. We get to 8th grade science, and in this, we had just a 10% drop while the state and region had a 12%, and we stayed above the state and region in both of those scores. Social studies in 8th grade continues to stay above the state and the region, all about the 10% to 11% for the state drop. Let's talk about Algebra 1. Remember, Algebra 1, we've increased our numbers at the 8th grade level of taking the Algebra 1 course, which is very exciting. And this is an area where we're clearly above the state and the region. We did drop 9 percentage points, but the region dropped 13 and the state dropped 12. So I commend our Algebra 1, the focus that we had there. This is one of our lower numbers of acceleration. This will be at the high school level. I'll share a little bit about that in just a moment. English 1 is above the state and the region. We did drop. This is interesting. We dropped 4 percentage points, but the region and state went up 3 percentage, but we're still above them. But I thought that was kind of an interesting anomaly. I have no idea why, honestly. I mean, I don't know if it's just a random anomaly or what, but we're continuing to look at some of these pieces. When we look at English 2, again, we stay above the state and the region. And in this case, while we dropped 4 percentage points, the state and region went up. Again, just interesting. Our English 2, if you'll remember, you may or may not remember, but in 2019, we were very excited about the increase that we had seen and the work we had done. Okay, we get to biology. This, the drop trended with the region and state at negative 8%. State dropped 7%, but we're still above them. And this is, I think, our second lowest number of students who will need accelerated instruction at 227. U.S. history is the smallest number, and in this is a major celebration. They dropped 1 percentage point, staying in the 93%, and the state and region went down. The region went down 5%, and the state went down 6%. So only 139 students. Some of these students retested in the summer. If they took an EOC and passed in the summer, they would not have to be a part of accelerated instruction. I wanted to total the amount to just give people an idea. And if you notice, the grade 3 in black is the grade in which they took the test, assuming they all moved to the next level. This is where elementary school would be working with the students in acceleration. So we have about 3,093 students. Some of those could repeat. I could fall in math, reading in 3rd grade. I could be math, reading, and writing in 4th grade. Remember, reading and writing would just be a 30-minute per week, 30 total hours. But we have 75,720 hours to supply to our students. At the middle school levels, again, the red is where the accelerated instruction will occur. Middle school has our largest number. They have 3 full grades of data that they're looking at with multiple tests. We have 3,972 and almost 120,000 hours worth of work. We're working very hard to have those meetings and take care of our kids. The high school has multiple tests. We've done, it's the second largest number to address, with 3,824 students who will need accelerated instruction and right at 115,000 hours of work.
How will we assess how we're doing? Obviously, the end of courses they'll still have to retake, but these other tests they won't retake. They've already finished that grade. So how will we assess how well our good faith effort is working?
Well, the big one will be in STAR 2022. That's what the state's going to look at, and us as well. But in the meantime, we'll take interim tests and our DCAs. So those are going to be indicators, litmus tests as we go along.
And you'll be slicing them by the kids that are getting remediation versus not.
Yes, we'll be tracking that data through our PLC time, and we have worked very hard. We're presenting to our district leadership team on Thursday the amount of departments that it's taking to address House Bill 4545. We're working with Rob and his finance department to figure out how do we track our tutors and the hours that they're putting in, where do we get the money. We've allotted right at $2 million of ESSER funds to support our work with accelerated instruction. We've been working with Debbie and her team in HR on promotion and posting, and how do we track them, how do we do those things on the employee level. And then we've got technology who's woven throughout. We've got curriculum and instruction who's training the tutors and supplying the curriculum. I've got Mary and her team working on everything about the test, everything. We're just all working together. Zach and Elizabeth Epps. Elizabeth Epps is our director of MTSS. Right now, we're all working together and moving it forward. We'll get it solidified with this is how we're tracking our students. These are the hours that we're able to track through Skyward, which that's Kirk and his team have been working on that with Zach Reeder. And then Zach and the director of MTS, Bethel Epps, will then keep us moving in the right direction, and I'll check on them and bring data for you. That's our goal, bring the data and make sure we're moving forward. Now this is interesting, 309,600 hours based on the numbers we have right now, okay, based on spring. Some of those will go away due to summer testing. So I did some mathematical work, and when you look at 30 hours, that means you're going to need 9,288,000 hours of student accelerated instruction. Then I divided it by 3 if we stay within the state, the 1 to 3, and that means we're going to have 3.9 million, so dividing that. But that's also in regards to hours, money. You know, the maximum we would have to pay at 30. If we jump up to $50 an hour based on $309,600, remember we're paying $30, they have to have 30 hours, so we did all that. But if it's $50 an hour, it's like 15 million. Our budget would be blown. Our ESSER budget, we couldn't afford that. So we've got, for our accelerated instruction, we are paying our certified tutors $30 an hour. We'll pay degree tutors $20, and then we've paid in the past our avid tutors. So we'll just, if you're uncertified, you're coming out of college or you don't have a degree yet, then that's a 15, or you're trained. Once you're trained, you'll get 15. So we're going to make a good faith effort. Commissioner Morath asked us to make a good faith effort. So we're really working hard to make that good faith effort to take care of our kids. We've always taken care of our kids. We'll continue to take care of them. Proud we're working in I don't mind being accountable. I'm a little disappointed that they told us we wouldn't be accountable and then they sprung this on us. You'll be getting a report next month on the accountability rating, but remember there is no rating, but we'll present a little bit on that. Any questions?
How many unique students is that? Because, you know, some of them overlap. Do you have, could you get?
I don't have it yet. I will, because the principals on the campuses are pulling that. Like how many, like I hope to bring you within the next month in a board update, the exact, like at this campus, I should have the number of students who are in reading only, or they're in reading and math at 3rd grade. So, but that's coming, they are processing those numbers. They probably have them processed by now, but I don't have them in a spreadsheet yet.
That won't really matter though, because they still have to have the unique 30 hours within each.
But
discipline.
logistically it matters.
Yeah, I would think
Easier to-
logistically.
yeah.
it would
They have to have the 30 hours in the subject they failed.
Yeah.
Is
So
there a time limit?
the year, you get the
You have
year.
the entire year. Very
Yeah,
good.
the entire year, which sounds like a lot, but then if I'm a child who didn't take any of the tests, or I was, you know, then I have maybe 4, I have 120 hours of after-school tutoring.
Can we say
Or
that number
before
too?
school, or-
How many are just because they didn't pass it versus how many
I'm
because they
sorry?
didn't take it? Then when you're doing the summary numbers, I'd like to see how many didn't pass because they didn't take it versus didn't pass.
Oh, okay. We're doing some, I'm seeking to really dive into the data. I want us to look at how many were quarantined 1 time versus 4 times. How many were virtual for 6 weeks versus all year. We hope to bring a report to you, but that's going to take a little bit of time to dig into it, and I'm going to have to seek some help. Any other questions?
Will other districts be breaking it down that way? Maybe that will, do you know of any, have you been talking to other?
I'm talking to them in the morning. We're all trying to get our mind around it. We're all struggling to get substitutes, tutors, all of those pieces together and to pay for it.
All right.
Okay, thank y'all.
Thank
Feel
you.
free to reach out if you have questions as we go.
All right, thank you, Dr. Parker. All right, next is some new course requests for 2022, 2023. Dr. Barnes, welcome.
Thank you very much. I do want to begin by saying that Dr. Parker's presentation, my goodness, the teachers and the students in Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD through a year and a half of a pandemic, amazing. We have just the very best here, and he's so extremely proud of all of them for what they went through last year and the year before. So thank you, Dr. Parker, for doing all of that. We are also very excited because we are consistently being mission focused to bring to you a recommendation for 6 new courses to be able to add for our students to best meet their needs. The first one is the GT Advanced Language Arts in our 6th grade humanities. The GT portion was for reading and for history. Well, now the state has combined reading and writing. And so we are needing to integrate that as well. So by definition, because we are on a double block, we would need to bring GT for the writing course as well. Very excited to bring 3 new CTE courses. We are continuing to expand under the leadership of Dana Eldridge. And again, this is just very, very exciting having 2 girls in the medical field and the technology field. I wish they were able to have this. Our first is we want to continue our business program by bringing in a practicum of business management. We are also wanting to implement our biomedical science pathway through the Biotechnology 1 course. And we are also wanting to complete our program of study through the court systems by bringing forward advanced legal skills and professions. The next course is On-Ramps Chemistry 2. We did pilot this program 2 years ago on one campus. And due to the recruitment and the greatness of our science teachers, they were able to then expand it to the other 2 high schools. So all 3 high schools this last year were able to offer the On-Ramps Chemistry 1. It was a great success. Many of our students did receive University of Texas credit. And so therefore we would like to bring forward the Chemistry 2. That is actually the 2nd semester per se of Chemistry 1. And then our final one is this is from the 87th legislation. So this past spring, the legislation implemented a bill that we are being able to offer the pilot of bringing it this year, but in 22-23 it will be required for full implementation. And that is where they are changing the idea of how we teach and present economics, and we will be adding personal financial literacy within that course. So what we would like next month when we bring this to you to consent, economics at this point in time, we still want to keep that course, but we would then need to offer the combination economics, personal financial literacy. So for the 22-23 school year, we will still abide by the legislators and what this bill requires, but we would like to do a study of our community, how many students want to just take economics and how many students want to do the economics and personal financial literacy.
It's an either or, they don't have to have it for, when you said required, it was required to be offered?
It's required to be offered.
Just to be offered, okay.
Yes, sir.
And then it said the curriculum is going to come from the Federal Reserve Bank?
Yes, we are very fortunate that the Federal Reserve, and actually it's we're utilizing the one right here in Dallas, they have put together actually several years ago the entire curriculum. We do not have to pay for any resources. We do not have to pay for additional training. It's a really good curriculum. It's, you know, I would say when we were taught how to fill out a check, Well, this one is just of the, 2021, mindset of how do you do a credit card? What is a debit card? How does truly a debit card really work? It goes into financing. Do you rent a car? Do you buy a car? Do you buy a used car? I mean, so even though it sounds very simplistic, it's not. And so again, what we're looking for is to be able to provide the opportunity for our students and our parents to choose what they would like. And then that will lead us into, do we want to continue to embed PFL into the economics class? Or we want to be able to provide both. We will still be able to offer dual credit economics as well.
I kind of see how we're going to write that description up for the course description. Before, I mean, is it just going to be economics and personal finance and literacy? We have to explain it some way. Yeah.
Yes, we are waiting to get further information from the state. Like I said, the bill just passed. That's why we are being asked to pilot it for this year, but we don't even have a PEMS number yet. But then in 22-23, it will be required. And at that point, we will have the description from the state and the PEMS number.
And then you mentioned that the Biotech One was going to be funded by Perkins funds. What on the cost? It says $25,000 for microscopes, centrifuge, and other needed research equipment. One-time equipment costs will be covered by Perkins funds.
Perkins is a federal grant that we received from, based on the census count with what our number of students living below poverty level is. And we get that yearly and have for forever, basically.
So the Perkins funds will just be applied to this. Okay, got it. Is that a federal, you said it was a federal fund?
Yes.
So it's audited, I guess, right? Yeah. Okay, wasn't familiar with it.
Any questions?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Always good to offer new things. That's great. Okay. Looks like we are two. We did make sure we're on 3. We've already done 3. We've already done 4. The fine arts report.
We're supposed to.
The director of fine arts, Mr. Sean Bell. You already knew where we were in the agenda. We were waiting to stand up until you were properly recognized.
I appreciate that delayed dramatic introduction. That was well done.
Perfect with the fine arts report.
Well, it's my honor and privilege to be here. President Newcomb, members of the board, Dr. Chadwell, distinguished guests, friends. As I put this presentation together, I just couldn't help myself. I said, state of the arts, which is what I've titled this presentation for several years, but this is the year of perseverance when we talk about 2021 for all of us, but especially and specifically in our fine arts programs. Because as you know, so many of our fine arts opportunities, contests, performances were sidelined because of the pandemic. But I want to say up front, I am so incredibly proud of our fine arts educators in this district for continuing to persevere, there's that word again, and to find ways to continue to educate, to inspire, to motivate their students on a daily basis. And I'll be quite honest, as a former high school choir director, when I saw what our middle school choir directors were dealing with every day, and my son was an 8th grader at Wayside, having to wear a mask and a shield when they came in and distanced, and they're not on risers and et cetera, I thought, there's no way in the world I could have done this. I would have, opted for digging ditches or selling insurance, I'm afraid. So I'm so proud of our educators and our students in that regard. You see here, I'm very proud, we're very proud of the in-district events that we create opportunities for our students year in and year out. And out of these 10, only those in green, the district dance showcase, the art experience, and the high school fine arts signing days were able to occur last year. And there's a reason for that, because all of those events happened second semester, right? So as vaccines became available and our forecast became more favorable, we were able to do more things, and we're very proud of that. And I really think that all three of those district events were well attended, and the students and the parents loved it, loved those events. But the art experience, the district art show, was just great. And we had a tremendous turnout and celebrated the kids and the teachers in a very special way. And you'll see these two beautiful young people. They happen to be the children of Alyssa Villarreal, our fine arts teacher at Dozier Elementary, and they're showcasing their artwork there. Sadly, our fine arts performance, go back one if I can, targets were sidelined because so many of them had to do with UIL competitions or vase contests, art, AP submissions, etc. So we've rolled these into Aspire 2025, and we're very much looking forward to collecting that data and motivating our students and our teachers to continue the progress in those areas. So just a few highlights per area. Again, the visual arts, we continue participation in the visual arts scholastic event, which is a competition akin to the Team EA all-region, all-state process for bands and choirs and orchestras, but on the visual arts side. So our students continue to participate, and we had continued visibility here in the Absher building and throughout the community with our incredible student artwork. And again, the art show was truly a success last year. Our bands, as you know, with your support and kind words and good thoughts, even our marching bands, you see down here in the bottom, I think this was one of the first home games, bottom left, where we were able to secure portable bleacher stands that we put at the end zones for our bands and put our drill teams out there so they could safely participate and support their students on the field and get to perform. So that was just one additional way we persevered last year. So all the high school bands, as you know, marching bands performed during the home games, and instead of a band expo, one big well-attended event that very well could have been a COVID spreader, right? We did 3 separate events on each of the high school campuses, and that was well attended for the parents and the communities of those high school bands and drill teams. And then in the spring, because our region and UIL concert and sight reading, which, as you know, is very much our assessment tool for our performing bands and choirs in the spring, it was because of quarantining and positive testing and so on and so forth, it was reduced to a virtual recorded event, which many of our groups opted and directors opted to participate in. But as an alternative or in addition to, we structured an opportunity where we brought in an adjudicator to their campus to give them feedback, and they performed their concert repertoire and they sight read just like they would in a quote unquote normal year at a UIL concert and sight reading competition. So I was very proud of our directors and our students for seeing students through that. Our choirs, I want to point out one picture that is one of my favorites here. They continue to sing, learn, present both virtual and live performances. Over here in the top right, okay, this picture was taken, I think, from the Boswell Band Tower in the west parking lot. And you see over here on the exterior wall of the band hall, there's a projection, okay? And all these cars, this was in October, I think right before Halloween, and the Boswell Choir program gave a fall concert and they fashioned it like a drive-in movie. And they had an FM transmitter that transmitted, all this was pre-recorded, right? Like in the Boswell Auditorium or in the choir room. And then folks could come, they sold concessions so they could eat popcorn and have a Coke and, you know, put their arm around their girlfriend or whatever they wanted to do in the cars, you know, while they enjoyed the performance. And at that time, we were pretty well locked down, right? So this was a great alternative, and I thought kudos to the Boswell choir directors for their creativity in coming up with that. And you see some pictures of other performing kiddos there. Again, the choirs, just like the bands, they either participated in the district concert and sight reading assessment and or UIL. Dance, they continue to perform at football games, basketball season performances by the drill teams, and then things kind of opened up in the spring, so they were able to go to their state, national, local dance competitions in the spring. So that was a good thing for them. I think our elementary fine arts were hit the hardest by the pandemic, but our teachers were awesome. They continue to maintain relationship with in-person students as well as the students that were at home and learning virtually. And, you know, it's a year that they hope to never have to repeat. But I think we all learned so much through the process and continue to educate our kiddos. And then theater arts, all the campuses produced either virtual or live performances. I've got to give kudos right here to this picture where I'm kind of shaking the cursor. This was a performance in November at Saginaw High School in the courtyard, outdoors, of A Midsummer Night's Dream. And you see, you may look at that and go, well, wait a minute, they're not wearing masks. Yes, they are. They're wearing clear masks that the directors searched and found and purchased for the kiddos so that their mouth, their expressions could still be communicated to the audience. And, you know, they socially distanced and they put Christmas lights in the trees as part of the decor. It was great, you know, fine arts people being creative. Who'd have thought, you know? So I was very proud of them. And then all three of our high schools not only participated in UIL one-act play, but all three high schools actually advanced out of the first round of their one-act play, their district competition, which was pretty remarkable in the midst of everything that they had to endure. So, like I always like to do, I just throw some pictures up here and kind of let you peruse these. We recognized 5 all-state choir and band members in a crazy year, which is tremendous. So you see here we have Miss Emma Delgado, the first trumpet player, all-state band member from Boswell High School, and 2 of the first all-state choir members from Chisholm Trail High School, and then 2 all-state band members from Chisholm Trail as well. So we're very proud. I'm very proud of our staff and our students and community, and we're excited about this year. So, any questions? All right, thank you so much. I don't know. I don't know how that picture got in there, but it was a guy that tried his hardest to win the Dr. Chadwell costume contest.
The look-alike
and,
contest.
Sadly was ousted by Buddy the Elf in Human Resources. So,
That's right.
yeah.
I noticed they pulled your picture down there from the back. They must have done that. I mean, the picture.
You know, as Ricky Bobby says, if you're not first, you're last.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
No one has ever said that.
At a board meeting,
Take him on, take him on.
All right, next report is our school safety report. Our Director of Safety and Security, Mr. Charles Ramirez. Charlie?
I can follow that. That guy's.
I don't know. That's your job.
I don't have all the fancy pictures and stuff like that, but. President Newcomb, members of the board, Dr. Chadwell, of course, it's a pleasure to be here again in front of you. I survived my first week of school, and it's pretty good, but I know we got plenty to go. So today's report is just a year in review of the Department of Safety and Security. As you all recall, I was hired in March, and since then we've been busy. And one of the first things I did, I was able to complete security assessments for each campuses. And so what that entailed is going to the campuses, walking it with the principals and the vice principals, looking at certain things, making sure the checklist that I had was covered. But I'm happy to announce that all those schools have their emergency operation plan. They were all updated. All the schools were in compliance with the TEA mandatory drills. So that was exciting. So some of the areas of focus that we're going to look at this year from that assessment are listed. We talk about camera placement and monitoring, working with operations for fencing, it's signage as well, training to ensure full compliance with safety and security plan, and of course equipment. We talk about being able to communicate with more radios. We also mandatory trauma kits for each school. We currently have them now. I'd like to see probably a few more, but we're working on that as we speak. So that was from that security assessment. Moving on, if you recall, the board did adopt a resolution process to consider establishing district police department. I think Dr. Chadwell, we're probably going to come before the board again in October with a budget and then get your pass that resolution so we can move forward with that. But right now we're still doing the working with Rob and the finance folks to actually make that happen. I'm happy to report that we did have a lot of training for not only some of our school administrators, but especially our school safety specialists. They received some really good training. They actually all got certified in stop the bleed trauma kits. They also learned reunification and what their role would be in case we do have an incident. We also trained them in gang recognition and narcotics recognition, where we had the gang unit from the Fort Worth Police Department come and give them training on what to look for and things to look out for during the school year, and also as far as narcotics recognition, some of the things that they see in other high schools and stuff and things to look out for. So that was really successful on our part. So another great thing is we had the approval to hire a coordinator for the safety and security. And what that was, Dr. Chadwell had the great idea to put it all under one roof, where we'd have someone from IT or an IT background be responsible for cameras, be responsible for doors and car access, and also with Crisis Go. So one-stop shop, so school administrators can actually call one person and be able to get that service. And right now we've received 20 applications for that position. We're in the process of going through them now and setting up interviews. So hopefully we'll get that done pretty quickly. Another thing that we were actively working on this year was been working with Mr. Welch on developing a long-term financial plan for basically just a financial plan for the department. So we're going to be really looking at grants, looking at other opportunities that we can tap into for some of this stuff. And also we really want to look at developing a plan to utilize technology to increase our safety amongst our campuses. And so that's really taking advantage of cameras and monitors and being able to have, command post, if you will, in certain campuses so we can monitor all areas of the school from maybe even one room. And I think Dr. Chadwell and I have actually discussed what that would look like if you go into a campus, especially our high schools, and being able to view any camera on campus from one location in that. So again, the real goal of the Safety and Security Department is to foster a culture of excellence in providing a safe learning environment. working environment for students, staff, and the community. At this time, I'll entertain any questions that you may have. You're gonna make these.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Mr. Morales. Move now to report section E, the Human Resources Report. The first one is the 21-22 additional staffing report. Dr. Dawkins.
Hello. President Newcomb, members of the board, Dr. Chadwell. Dr. Parker and I are coming to you tonight with a request, working with Rob and his department on ESSER funds and trying to utilize those in the best way that we can. And again, like Dr. Parker said, the need for additional support to provide our students, we believe would come especially for our larger middle schools. We have at this time 2 middle schools, over 1,000 students. So just the additional demands on a campus of that size. We do have the availability of funds to set a staffing ratio for adding a 3rd assistant principal at campuses of 1,000 and greater. So we have the ability for those funds for 2 to 3 years, and then past that, we would like to set that as a staffing ratio. So this
Our
person,
high school ratio.
we have 6 at our high schools, I believe, 5. Excuse me, 5
plus a principal.
Yes, 6 administrators.
What's the ratios been what, 400 to 1? I mean, 1,000.
I have to do the
4,
math real
yeah,
quick.
about 4.
Dynamics are different because there's more activities. I don't usually compare them that way because they're just simply more at a high school in terms of evening activities. And I can run it real quick. Let me just.
That's okay.
Yeah. We're at that number now of over 1,000 consistently, and so we've talked about it for a couple of years, and not just because of 45, but all the additional requirements and things that take place at the middle school. We really feel like that this is important, that we add another person in that area, and that's a sustained number. If you get to 1,001 for a day, you don't get another assistant principal, but if it's sustained over a period of time, and it appears we're not going back. And so this is something just to know in the future, that if we do have additional middle schools out of our other 4 that do go over, we would be coming back and asking for those.
What's the capacity in each of them, the middle school?
Well, they differ depending on the middle school, so I'll defer to Mr. Welch for that.
Let's go to capacity. We had to hit it one time for a meeting.
Green Creek, it's going to be around 1,200 kids, up to that. Creek View's around 11, and because it has one extra room versus Highland, be a little bit less than that.
So 1,200 is what we're planning on, the larger ones being 1,200 kids.
To that part, I don't think.
And then
I think if they could hit that and not sustain it over a long period of time.
We open a 7th and then an 8th middle school, which would be the plans, and
I think
they would drop back down.
And we would drop that number in consideration of that with the 7th middle school.
And when ESSER funding is this just for the years of ESSER funding, or we're just going to start?
No,
the
we're
staff?
planning on rolling it into regular funding. This is just a way to get it started and utilize that special funding for now. I will tell you, if we didn't have ESSER, I would say we should adjust our budget to do it. It's just we happen to have ESSER to be able to address it. So it is something that we've talked about for a few years as we were talking to some of the principals that are leading. I'll just say they made a very good case. They were very detailed in the number of hours that are done for various activities and responsibilities. And really 45 kind of put it over the edge a little bit, but we're already there. I mean, in terms of other responsibilities, ARDS and all of the different types of meetings, 504 meetings, et cetera, that you have to have. And so that's something that we, again, have discussed for a while, and we feel like we're ready for that growth. Yeah.
And your extracurricular as well, after school activities and evening.
And we have additional activities. I mean, we have different, for example, soccer's been there for a while, but different things that in the last few years have been added. And now that you just have more kids, it's just more intensity of having that.
Instructional demands true too. As an instructional leader, making sure you have time with T-tests. It's a whole new ballgame of conferencing with teachers, setting goals, and then monitoring those goals. It's very different than the old system of appraisal. There's a lot when you're on a campus of those larger campuses. It's a lot. There's a lot on the small ones too.
We did adjust the high school staffing plan a few years ago in consideration of T-tests, and this is coming here. We don't expect the same at elementary to be recommended. So there's nothing, we don't see that coming. It's just more middle school.
So what again would constitute us adding these to the other?
To be over 1,000 students and that's sustained.
And then
So like we're not going back, it's quite obvious, you know, we're at 1,050 and growing. You know, if there are 1,001, that's, you know, for a few days, that's not going to constitute it. But typically when we grow by 50 or 60. It doesn't usually work in small, very small increments.
This is coming back in September, so by then we'll
Yes.
have the size of each of the middle
Exactly.
schools, because we didn't have them tonight.
We didn't want to push this tonight for first of all, so you have the opportunity to consider it and have time to think if that's something we want to do, but also we'll have better numbers in September to know definitively, you know, it's possible we come back for 3 or we come back for 1. It just depends on what the numbers end up being in September.
Okay. All right, next is a resolution of the EMS ISD Board of Trustees regarding additional leave for COVID-19 employee illness. I will point out to board members that the revision to that policy was at your place tonight. Stated twice because it's also coming back as an action item around 10 o'clock, but the report is there, E2.
Yes, sir. So the original resolution was prior to our TEA guidance that came out on the 19th. So we pivoted on Friday and made some adjustments, and so that's what you see in front of you. I'll direct your attention actually to the last page of the resolution. I'll read parts of that for our audience's understanding of that. So what we're asking, it is therefore resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School District finds a substantial public purpose exists in protecting the health and safety of its students, staff, and community in light of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. In furtherance of the public purposes so stated in the resolution, the Board of Trustees in Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School Districts makes the following delegations to the superintendent and designees. And this is what we are recommending this evening. The first one is the authority to provide additional paid leave for employees on a district-directed quarantine due to work-related exposure for COVID-19, or for a district-directed quarantine for employees with their own test-confirmed COVID-19 illness. And second, the authority to create guidelines and make determinations regarding absences, leave time, leave days, and additional paid sick leave for any employee placed on a district-directed quarantine due to a work-related exposure to COVID-19 or for their own test-confirmed COVID-19 illness in the sole direction of the superintendent or designees in compliance with Texas and federal law. And that the authority granted by this resolution may be applied retroactively and through December 31st, 2021 as necessary, and is effective for the 21-22 employee work calendars, all of which calendars begin on July 1st. So the resolution would be effective July 1st, and at this point through December 31st of this year.
Now, did TEA give us some direct instructions regarding these quarantines, or when we came up with 1, 2, and 3, was that?
Right. Mm-hmm.
They're really designed around flexibility
because
we don't know, the rules have changed 3 times since last week. And the final change came through the service center, not through TEA, alleged to have been sent to us, and some of them don't match, as Ms. Smith and I talked about earlier today, they don't match the CDC guidelines.
Right.
So we were anticipating that the changes to match the CDC guidelines, and they don't. But it's today, right? It's not tomorrow. So tomorrow they may match. And so the whole thing here is to have some flexibility in being able to how we would put this into place. Based on any rules that would come in the future. So for example, if we put the specific parameters for quarantine on here, as soon as they change the rules, this resolution would be null because it would be too specific.
Right.
That's why it's a little bit overarching. The key words here are district directed and work related. And so this would be something that we would deem as an administration that is work related through some type of work-related exposure versus you got it from a family member at home, that there's a documentation that you're a close contact in the classroom or that you're COVID positive, most likely due to a work-related exposure.
Obviously, they tested positive, and that's covered, right? Or even though it's a self-directed,
Right. It would be. It would be. Without this, you wouldn't. I mean, without this, any positives you would pull from your days. So.
Tim?
So a district-directed quarantine, I thought we were going away from quarantines. And I mean, I thought that was, we quarantined, sent whole classrooms home last year and sent teachers home that were in close contact with people. I thought that's what we were moving away from, not towards.
That's correct, until the TEA last Thursday stated that they are recommending that we do quarantines under certain situations and even put requirements on there to potentially test people before they come back. And that's where we're getting really mixed information, whether those individuals at first, from the commissioner's presentation on Thursday at 3 o'clock, he stated that those who are vaccinated would not be required to do any type of testing to come back at all. But if they're vaccinated, at about 5 o'clock, we get something from TEA that says not that at all, says something different. And it was written in a way that wasn't clear, I'll put it that way. And so those are the changes that we're talking about. And so we're not trying to get away from our direction, but we're also having to respond to the TEA requirements as well that may be coming. They think they're changing it a lot.
That may be coming, but I'd be all for giving teachers or employees of the district that tested positive for COVID to give them their 8 days, or which counting the weekend would be 10 days of paid sick days that wouldn't come off of their sick days that we would give them. But that'd be for anybody that tested positive. But just to, I mean, we don't quarantine anybody. I mean, this just sounds like if you come in contact with somebody, then we're going to start quarantining people.
Well, no, this is the allowance to pay them. We are not intending to change a direction unless we're required to. So the things we've communicated earlier that are in our plans online is what we're planning to do. But if tomorrow the TEA comes out and says you must, or there was a governor's order that said you must, we'd have no way to compensate them. And that's what this is allowing us to do, is the ability to do that in those cases. And that's all that is. It's not trying to get into the weeds of what you will do in certain situations. That's really in the COVID rules that are being sent to us. But as it is right now, I mean, and again, we're having to verify this, and Holly and I've been working on it, is that last week's guidance was from the commissioner himself, was that if somebody is tested or has a vaccine, that they would not be required to quarantine. And then again, information that came out a couple hours later was different than that.
I guess I'm confused. Who has to quarantine if you don't test positive? I mean, obviously, if you test positive, you go home for your 10 days. I'm just confused. I haven't seen anywhere where the state has told us or says you've got to quarantine.
I can send it to you. It came out on the 19th, and then we received something from Region 11 today that said, forget what you saw on the 19th. This is the clarifying, and we've not yet received it from the TEA.
So teachers are going to have to quarantine, but kids aren't.
I can't tell you that because I haven't seen the guidance from it yet. I'm waiting for it. I mean, this is incredibly difficult. You hear one thing and you get something different, and then you receive something different. It has been a continuation. All this is just the ability in those cases to compensate. If we want to not do that and then come back and consider it at a later time when maybe the rules are locked in, it just means in the meantime people may possibly have to be docked because they'll, especially a brand new staff person or a person that's burned all their leave days prior because of an illness or something like that, may run into a situation where they've had to quarantine. So say TEA said later this week, thou shalt quarantine under any conditions, because the latest thing that we're having to review is even if you're vaccinated, you would have to have the negative test every day to come back, that kind of thing. So they say they changed the rules and now it's required. There could be a possibility we would run into people that we would have to, that they would run out of days. And it would be beyond our control to do it. And that's why we're trying to put a little bit of flexibility in this to be able to manage that in those situations.
But you're not intending to make any modifications to quarantine unless you're directed by a government.
That's correct. That's correct.
So clarity is for COVID only, 64 hours or 8 days. And then therefore, after that, they take their own personal days if they get COVID again or whatever.
That's not how this reads.
It's not how that reads.
When the first iteration that y'all saw, it was tied to 8 hours. This is another example of something that's changed very quickly.
Okay.
2 weeks ago, well, let's say a month ago, we thought you got COVID once, you got COVID, you're done. Now that's not the case. We have people that have COVID that are getting COVID multiple times. So in the conversation last week, when y'all received the resolution, it was an 8-day because the idea there was if we have another iteration of this later that people can get it 2 to 3 times, that we may address that with a later resolution. When we made this change, we went ahead and just left as much flexibility in there as possible to that if you had to have additional. So if someone gets it 2 times this year, we wouldn't have to go back and pass another resolution.
Okay.
And if there's things y'all want us to do on it, it is under action. But if there's something you want us to work on and you want us to bring it back in September with those changes, we can certainly do so. It's the way it's written, it's retroactive. It may mean someone loses days now, but then we come back and restore those. So I don't want y'all to feel like if it's now or nothing, because it's not. We can always bring this back in September with changes that y'all would like to see.
So how would they lose days now? Not something that happened in the future, but is there somebody right now quarantining?
Yes. Because of COVID positive.
Well, they're COVID positive, they're not quarantining,
Well, they would have to be quarantined if they're COVID positive.
That's what I mean, but
10 days
that's
for
totally
quarantine.
different.
But that's in here. That's
It's in
both,
here.
both are in here, the test confirmed case
They're
and the
both.
quarantine. So even if you eliminated all the quarantine, it also covers just
Yeah.
an actual case of COVID.
That's the biggest group we're dealing with right now. The second one we just spent some time on was about quarantines. That's we're having to get confirmation from TEA on right now. So I can't really tell you definitively what they're going to send us tomorrow, what rules they're going to change.
But this is just broad. We're not changing our focus. This is broad in case TEA changes their mind and
Correct.
decides to quarantine. We don't have people out there waiting for a check.
That's correct.
That they're not going to get. And being a federal worker, it's pretty tough to wait during a furlough or whatever for a missing paycheck. So I would say it needs to be this broad so that people that are sitting at home now, and especially new teachers, won't miss a paycheck.
I may share with y'all, when I first sent this to y'all for this board meeting, we were really focusing on COVID positives. And that was really based on all the conversation all summer from TEA. School started and all of a sudden they started talking about things that have been nailed down for months.
Yeah.
And so that's why this other section's been added, is just again for flexibility there, because this is literally since we posted the agenda on Wednesday. That's how much changes occurred.
So what if someone is in close contact with someone and they said, I want to go home and quarantine?
Says district directed.
District, like from a district exposure? Like
But it
if they're
says
at work and
district
they get exposed, or outside of work?
No, it's school.
At school. We're going to follow the TEA rules, which again are yet to be determined. If they tell us that we have to quarantine, which would be strange because they're not requiring the students to quarantine. So it's very chaotic right now. We don't have definitive rules.
But the way this is written, it would only be if you directed them.
Correct.
It would not be.
But we're only going to direct it if we're mandated by the TEA to do so.
Correct. We're going to follow their rules of what they put out. And that's correct.
So someone just can't say, I'm going to go home for 10 days because I was exposed, and think that they're going to get their sick days or those days paid.
That's correct. So
or their sick leave.
So the example there, work-related is a little bit easier because we do contact tracing. We know exactly who they're exposed to for 15 minutes within 6 feet. And so we know that. The one that we would not approve is if somebody states they've been exposed outside of work and they want to quarantine. That would not be covered by this. It would be.
But in absence of TEA guidance, you also, if an employee tomorrow says, I'd like to quarantine, and I think I was exposed, we wouldn't be granting that either, right?
Correct. We wouldn't grant, we could grant, if somebody was exposed, for example, say on a plane or at home or wherever, and they wanted to quarantine, those individuals could quarantine, but their days would come would be on their own personal days. That's correct.
But even as we sit today, right now, if someone comes in tomorrow and says, I was exposed at school and I want to go home and quarantine, they can do that, but they don't get their days paid for.
That's correct.
Correct. Unless the TEA comes in and says something differently.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In addition, we have the COVID.
Everybody on the same page? Hold on.
Okay,
Everybody on the
sorry,
same
I was
page?
going to add something.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, on our website, we still have the COVID-19, the employee reporting form, and that's very specific and detailed when someone's reporting, either they have symptoms or, that information. They're telling us specifically who they came in contact with, so that assists Poly Health Services in that contact tracing if need be. But that's also used for cleaning our facilities. And so just ensuring that we have a clean environment as well. So we're still tracking that information or receiving all of the details of that information.
Just one other side thing for you all to know that's changed as well. Last week, it was reported to us if somebody was vaccinated, they wouldn't be required to test. And then that moved to they would be required to test on day 3 or 5.
Right.
Then there's questions that would be every other day, which is called serial testing.
Right.
So one of the things you may hear about, and all of our employees will hear about, is the requirement opportunity to test. And so obviously every staff member that's engaged right now as a nurse is incredibly busy. Right. And so we all have reached out to, Mr. Welch has reached out to our clinic to get a support. There are also some other third parties to have a clinic, because if that becomes a requirement, anyone that's close contact has to be tested daily or every other day.
Right.
That's a huge amount of labor that needs to be done, and it can't be done in one spot. And so my direction for our team is that would be done at least east-west in the district, so people wouldn't have to cross railroad tracks for time purposes, but even possibly more, having 3 to 4 locations where they could test in the morning. And we have enough tests. I don't know how many thousands we have, but we have tens of thousands to test, a bunch, okay? So the tests aren't the problem, it's the giving the test that's the problem.
The time to give the test.
Yes.
And do they have to wear certain, be in COVID mask or to give it?
They have to wear a mask, but people that give it, but they don't even have to get out of their car.
No.
People walk out to their car to give them the test and swab them there. That part, it's not one person, it's just the number and the requirements and that process. And so that's all within the last few days.
The quarantine for childcare is different, remember, from the web staff.
Yes.
Compared to the quarantine of staff in pre-K on that.
That's a good point.
Okay.
So we're under the state licensing agency for our employee childcare. So we have a different set of rules there that we.
And that didn't have to be addressed by this because it's covered under a separate set of rules?
It would, if the license agency required the staff to quarantine, it would be. That means all the child care workers that are compelled to quarantine would not be covered, would be docked, because there's no ability to pay them if they're not at work, unless they use their days. So.
The licensing requires them, correct?
Right.
To be quarantined. Yeah. So they're having to quarantine, yes.
You even have kids or grandkids in daycare, I understand that.
Yeah, they have a different set of rules.
Quarantine rules are different. All right. Any other questions or comments? Well, that takes us to our report items of the agenda. I think I hit that just about perfect. About the time it was going to take. And Before we go into the action items, we've been sitting here 2 hours, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
I don't trust you people, I'm one of them.
Yes.
Let's, our 5-minute break that turned into 8 is now over. It's 9:08 PM as we pick up the action items. The first is to conduct a public meeting to discuss the budget and proposed tax rate. Mr. Welch, let me call us in, I guess. At this time, on behalf of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD, I declare an open hearing to discuss the budget and proposed tax rate. At this time, Mr. Welch will conduct the report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newcomb and trustees. It's good to be in front of you again as we conduct the public meeting to discuss the proposed budget and tax rate for the 2021-2022 school year. Y'all have been provided a lot of information along the way and quite a bit tonight already. I will simply run through the proposed tax rate. That we have tonight is derived by applying the district certified values to a state formula to determine the maximum compressed maintenance and operations tax rate, which we are proposing tonight at 0.9575 per $100 of taxable valuation. The interest in sinking tax rate is tax rate necessary to pay voter approved debt obligations, which is proposed at an even 50 cents per $100 taxable valuation. Combined, the proposed total tax rate equals $1 and 4.4575 per $100 of taxable valuation, for a decrease in total tax rate of 3.89 cents compared to the prior year. The tax rate does support the 2021-22 proposed budget, and the board adopted budgets are provided in your packet, including the general fund, child nutrition fund, and debt service fund. The required notices for both the tax rate and the proposed budget have been calculated and published. And you will notice in those publications all of the required pieces for the proposed budget. There are some specific object areas that are required as well, and those are duly posted. Something to note, the proposed budget envelops the projected needs and supporting revenues as developed through the budget process that began back in the winter months earlier this year. And through that process, following provisions have been included. One, a compensation plan that includes a 2% increase for all employees and adjustments to various stipends and supplemental pay. The additional $25 per month to affect a $300 per month employer contribution to employee medical insurance. This is a goal that the board set out 2 years ago to move from $250 to $300 per month. It also includes opening of Lake Country Elementary School and all the cost situated in adding an additional campus. And then the strategic use of ESSER funding to fund the needs of the district created by the pandemic, including the need to target student learning loss, but also mitigate the effects of House Bill 3's $13 million annual decrease to the funding formula. So, and if you'll look on page 190, you will see it on the bottom line that with the proposed budget, it is projecting a net positive amount across all three funds for what is essentially a balanced budget proposal. With the continued environment where we have or may have additional cost and or financial assistance, this year will again be a year where we monitor and the many potential impacts closely and try to remain as fiscally flexible as we can. With that, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Otherwise, that would conclude the budget presentation.
And all the calculation worksheets and things that are included in the presentation were the ones required to be presented, correct, Mr. Welch?
Yes, sir, they are. That's a new requirement that the 2021 tax rate calculation worksheet provided by the comptroller, that is now required to be attached to the budget proposal as posted on the website and other locations. And so in a related item, the board has to designate the person to complete those worksheets, and that's provided in the,
that's coming up later.
That's coming up later as well. So that's all provided in one nice package.
I'll apologize to the public who was either waiting to speak or listening online that this item, which probably was, you were thinking was going to be closer to 7, is coming at 9:15. But Megan, has anyone signed up tonight to speak directly to the board?
No, Board President, they have not.
All right, thank you. Therefore, at this time, the public hearing is closed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. Don't go anywhere, because now we will consider adoption of the 21-22 accelerated instruction budget on page 196.
I recommend.
Go for it.
I recommend to adopt the 2021-2022 accelerated instruction budget as presented.
Motion by Liz, second by Paige, to adopt the 21-22 acceleration instruction budget as presented. Any questions? Seeing or hearing none, I'm going to ask that you raise your hand, and William, that you state aye. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Bose has joined us by phone. Okay. William Bose voted aye, which made the vote 7-0. I can hear him up here, but I will repeat his vote. Thank you for reminding me of that. Next is to consider the adoption of the 21-22 budget.
I move the board adopt the 2021-2022 maintenance and operations, interest and sinking, and child nutrition budgets as presented.
Second.
Motion by Donna, second by Marilyn, to adopt 21-22 maintenance and operations. Questions on that? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. William, please vote. Let the record show that William voted aye. There are no opposed and the motion carries 7-0. Next is to adopt the ordinance to set the tax rate. It's on page 206.
I move that the property tax rate for the 2021-2022 fiscal year be established by the adoption of a tax rate of, I'm going to have to increase this, 0.9575 per $100 valuation for maintenance and operation M&O, and a tax rate of 0.50 per $100 for valuation for interest and sinking fund, INS, in order to ensure the district raises enough revenue to pay outstanding obligations for a total rate of 14575 per $100 valuation. Did I get it right?
Second.
Motion by Donna, second by Liz, to set the property tax rate. Any questions on that? Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. William Bose votes aye, therefore the motion carries 7-0. Congratulations, board, you've got a tax rate and a budget. Next is to act on the 2020-2021 budget amendment. It was covered earlier in the report section.
I move we approve the budget amendment for August 2021 as presented.
Second.
Motion by Paige, second by Marilyn to approve the budget amendment. Any questions? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. William votes aye. Motion carries 7-0. All right, next is to consider approving the property and casualty insurance policies.
I move the board approve a property and casualty insurance policy package per the proposal of Alamo/Brown & Brown Insurance for a total cost not to exceed $2,226,441.57.
Second.
Motion by Donna, second by Marilyn to approve the recommendation. Any questions, concerns? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. William Bose votes aye. Motion carries 7-0. Next is to consider a resolution for designation of officer to calculate the district tax rates. You're doing great, Rob. Just stay right there.
I move the board approve a resolution designating the chief financial officer to calculate the district's tax rate, including the no new revenue tax rate and the voter approval tax rate as presented.
Second.
Motion by Donna, second by Marilyn. Is there any requirement that we read the resolution on 289 and 90 that we're aware of? If we refer to it in the motion, we're good?
We're
Everybody good? Okay.
We're good.
Any questions then? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. William Bose votes aye. Motion carries 7-0. Next is to consider the renewal of the lease agreement with Tarrant Regional Water District.
I move that the administration, that the board approves renewing the lease agreement with Tarrant Regional Water District for the EMS ISD agriculture facility as presented.
Second.
Motion by Liz, second by William to approve the lease agreement. Questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. William votes aye. Motion carries 7-0. Next is to act on intergovernment cooperative purchase agreement with Region 5
I move we approve participation in the intergovernmental cooperative purchasing with Region 5 ESC, Southeast Texas Purchasing Cooperative.
Second.
Motion by Donna and second by Marilyn. Questions on this action item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Aye. William votes aye, motion carries 7-0. All right, I think Mr. Welch, we appreciate you very much. Great job. Next is to consider approving the TASB 117 update. Sandria White.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So after the July board meeting, then I went back and did some revisions, and so I've presented some new things for you in this board packet. I'm just going to review them a little bit. The revision to CH Local, which was the purchasing and acquisition, considered leaving most of the wording with the exception of making sure that we still have in place emergency replacement construction or repair if necessary for the health and safety. And this, remember, is in connection if we have an emergency or a catastrophe up to $250,000. And then also making sure that our competitive bidding and competitive sealed proposals are the same and that we show that specifically in our admin regs as well. So that's the CH purchasing and acquisition. The CV, which was facilities and construction, just revised the $100,000 because for whatever reason TASB had marked that out and I just corrected that. Making sure that we kept the note about that we would review back to CH Local for a delegation of authority for construction contracts in the event of a catastrophe, emergency, or natural disaster. And then DEC leaves in absence seemed to be the one that was really wanting some work. And so we basically took DEC leaves in absence and we took TASB's recommended text on some of it, but then we added back in what they originally wanted us to take out. And we're just leaving that as our recommendation in as policy. They were wanting us to take all the managerial part out. So we are leaving all of that still in the policy. Specifically about recording regarding leave without pay, recording of absences, order of use, and then also we are recommending that we keep the text about payment for accumulated leave upon retirement and payment for accumulated leave upon separation. So
Those
that's
are
basically
set by board it just says to be paid as board policy. Is that the one?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
That's okay. I believe it's, let's see, that part started on, I think, 342 is what I have noted, but the DEC was all about the leaves and absences. That was the one that they were recommending that we take a lot of things out of policy and we're just going to leave it all in.
And what, I think the risk we were understanding we could be taking is that they would no longer support that policy. Is that?
Well, and here's the thing about this policy is always not going to be like a TASB like A or B, which is what you see at the bottom. This one is always going to be considered an X policy because it's our own. And DEC, the leaves and absence policy, is never going to have like a policy recommendation. It gives us a worksheet and says, here, how do you do this? What are your procedures for this policy?
It's like
and then
that's local.
Correct.
The EIC local is always an X too.
That's right.
Specific to the district.
That's right.
But what you're saying is correct on many of the policies where they really point you in a direction to dovetail with legal, but in this case, we have the flexibility.
That's right.
So is it going to be labeled DEC local or?
It still
local?
is, yes, sir. It's still labeled as DEC local. It'll just be, it's just DEC local for Eagle Mountain Saginaw and how we how we do all of our procedures for leaves and absences.
Okay.
So they were just trying to get districts to take the managerial part out of it. But that's just an option that they give from when they're giving the updates as recommendations.
All right, any other questions, concerns? If not, the chair will entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the revised TASB 117 update.
Second.
Motion by Marilyn, second by Donna. Questions?
How much do we pay employees that retire for their local accumulated sick days per day?
It is still in policy how we've had it. Hold on, I'll tell you. Currently for retirement or separation? Because
Retirement. They're retiring and they have accumulated local sick days. How much per day do they get?
They get $50 per day for their accumulated days.
At some juncture, just for my sake, I think we ought to look at upping that number for, as kind of a reward for those people that have had longevity in the district. Because if you hire someone that's got 30 or 35 years and they work 3 or 4 years within your district, it's not like they're accumulating a ton of days. So those people that are going to have a lot of sick days saved up, and we're not talking state days, we're talking our local days that they're given. I'd like to see us, make that a little more rewarding than $50 per day. At some juncture, it's just something for the future for us to look at and think about.
Our plan is later in the fall. We have this one and 2 others. One has to do with the 3rd week of vacation that was removed from policy a few years ago. But we have some things for retention and also for support, like you're talking about, that we're going to bring back for discussion. I can't tell you the month. It'll probably be October or November. But if you all have other things like that you feel like would be good tweaks to policy that would either be really good at retention, also good at support. One of the things that Mr. Daughtry has talked about on this has an effect if you don't pay enough, and that is the days aren't seen as valuable. Therefore, people may use more days in their last year of employment, which then becomes a sub problem. So there's an advantage to make that, worth somebody's money, if you will, to go ahead and keep those days there so that they would be at work and wouldn't be using a sub. And
plus it's better for the kids.
Yeah,
to have their teacher in the classroom.
Right.
Anyway.
So if y'all see things like that, please let me know. Please reach out to me, and then we can bring those back to y'all for discussion and later any policy changes.
I thought it did say on the EC local that it was a rate set by the board. Is that, am I missing that? Is that on page, let's see, on page 320 of our book, which is page 7 of 8 at the EC local?
Yes.
Is that where it is?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Because the bottom says payment for accumulated leave upon separation. It's 50's marked out and it's got $5 per day.
So that's for separation. For
Just for
retirement is above.
Is above that?
Yes, sir, where it shows
Rate of 50 per day
$50. Yes.
established by the board. Okay, got it.
Correct.
Anyways, all right. Any other, we have a motion by Marilyn and a second by Donna. Any other questions? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. William, how do you vote? Aye? William votes aye. Thank you. 7-0. We also have some other local policy updates.
Yes.
Ms. White, that start on page 325 of your.
Correct. And these were also brought in July, and a couple of changes were recommended on those. And there was some confusion about all of the rules on DHE as far as the Department of Transportation rules. So that was a recommendation, but we've taken that part back out and just are leaving it as it is, except for the part at the bottom of that policy where those are safety, considered safety sensitive positions that could be subject to testing, but it still is based on a reasonable suspicion. We're making sure that that's in the wording. So DHE was the one that was in question, and there was some concerns from the last meeting. And then I think we worked it out, but EIC, I think President Newcomb, your question had to do with valedictorian and salutatorian and being eligible for having been enrolled 4 full school years and also enrolled in the same district high school for 4 semesters preceding graduation. And that didn't change. That still is the same. Okay. Yes, sir.
All right.
That was the only thing that I think I got out of y'all from the local policies.
Anybody remember anything different or have a question? Not, the chair will entertain a motion.
Move that the board approve the revised local policy updates and regulations as presented.
Motion by Marilyn and second by Liz to approve the revised local policy updates and regs herein listed. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Aye. William votes aye. There are no opposed. Motion carries 7-0. All right. Thank you, Ms. White. Next is consider the approval of the resolution of the EMS ISD Board of Trustees regarding additional leave for COVID-19 employee illness. Dr. Dawkins.
I make a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Second.
Motion by Tim, second by Marilyn, and it is the one at your place, not in your book, just to be clear. Make sure I get the right one. Right. Any other questions? This recent report, seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand.
Have I not seen this yet? Should I have seen this?
You should have got it in an email, William.
Okay, yes, I thought it was. Okay, yes,
But
okay.
And we had it as a report.
And we had it in a report tonight, but it was the same as the email you got.
Okay, okay.
How do you vote?
Aye.
Aye for it, in favor. All right, motion carries 7-0. All right, that concludes the action items for the time being. We have, of course, one more remaining. Next is routine monthly reports. Are there any questions over routine and monthly reports? Seeing none, we'll now review the 2021 board planning calendar. Dr. Chadwick.
Okay, so on the planning calendar, you see a few items. Dr. Parker earlier mentioned the accountability ratings report, and so we'll provide information there. We also, just to add to that as we collect information, as we do the analysis that you talked about, we'll bring you that information on a monthly basis. And so there'll be some information there, but also information after that forthcoming. We also have a career and technology report, and then also the EMSI State Police Department creation update. That's just an update, no action at this meeting. You see that there's no action items. Obviously, there's at least one that will be on there. This is just the planning calendar. And so I wouldn't bank on no action items. So some others probably coming.
And again, reminding the board, if anyone wishes to include an item on the agenda, please let myself and/or Dr. Chapel know. Next is the consent agenda for approval.
Will we approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion by Paige to approve the consent agenda, second by Donna. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
William votes aye. Motion carries 7-0. All right, as far as board president announcements, I just want to commend Dr. Chapel and her staff on leadership team, employees on getting school started. You know how difficult that can be, and that we're off and running. So good job to everyone in the room, and we appreciate you so much. I know we're all excited to see our kids back in school, and so I know it's been an exciting time just to get school started back up again. So thank you all so very much. I appreciate that. There was one question at our
place about setting a team of 8 meeting. Do you have all the answers now that you got mine? Everybody's responded. All right, thank you.
So we actually have a date, so do you mind calling the date?
October 4th, all right.
And we'll send that to you in the update as well, but that's a Monday, October 4th, which was the first one on the list there.
All right.
And I talked to, well, I'll wait till
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
I did talk with our Kathy Bryce, Dr. Bryce, who'll be the consultant that will be working with us that evening. So they're looking forward to that. And also on page 456, I believe, of your packet, a lot of different calendar items. I won't list all of those, but we have a lot coming up and a lot of exciting things happening. Just to echo what Mr. Newcomb said, it was great watching our kids come back as you go through schools and just see this excitement, this joy on kids' faces and seeing our teachers connect with kids. I know my own daughter going back to school, I'd say she was kind of ready. I mean, I think a little bit summer would have been nice, but you know, she was ready to go back. And I know that was the case for a lot of kids. Now, you have a granddaughter.
I do.
It's at Elkins.
She's at Elkins,
and
she's very excited to start pre-K.
She's a very shy child.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
Not at all. Sarcasm intended. No, she's great.
She, Dr. Parker asked her if she knew her grandfather's name. So,
You don't
so,
have.
yeah, I know.
You're
I know
not,
who it is.
you're not Steve anymore, are you?
And so she said, okay, Dr. Parker, who is it? And she told her, Scott. My grandpa's name is Scott. I said, well, I thought it was Stephen. She said, no, it's Scott. Well, she calls Callie's mom and dad, Grandpa. I'm Papa Bear.
Okay.
So she was totally right in telling Dr. Parker that, no, you don't know mine.
I don't know him, Papa.
Good job, Dr. Parker.
Yeah.
I know Papa Bear.
Yeah, now you know.
Yeah. Anyway, I appreciate each of you and all of our staff for getting things going. A lot of kids coming back. Obviously, our growth is significant. We saw the report earlier. It's a very exciting time to be in the district. We know we also, no doubt, there's a considerable amount of stress on everybody in the school district, our staff, our students, our parents, and I know we're all managing through those things. I just want to say that I just admire everybody's tenaciousness to want their kids to learn. However that approach may be, and sometimes those people approach it maybe in different ways, but bottom line is everybody's here for kids and wanting the very best for children. So I just really appreciate everybody's focus on that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Chapel. Seeing there's no further business to come before this board, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Motion by Donna, second by Tim. We're adjourned.